Chapter 1369. Double Gravity. However, it did not stop there. Tianyang's heart skipped a beat as he formed a sword of true origin and slashed it forward. As expected, his veritable essence energy was also greatly restricted. The power did not change, but the true essence was restricted by a strange power, and the speed at which it circulated became slightly slower. If it was someone with a weaker primordial spirit, they would not have noticed it and would have thought that the Dragon Demon Thousand Refining Pagoda only had double gravity. Although the first level has double gravity, it is still okay for Body Refinement Realm and Bright Chi Realm cultivators. However, it is too weak for Sage Realm cultivators. Tianyang shook his head and walked toward the entrance of the second level. He had just tested it. Although he could contact the people in the Vientiane Sky ruins and talk to the Heavens Expanse Sacred Spirit, he could not do it. However, it was impossible to release them from the Vientiane Sky ruins. After all, the space inversion meant that the Dragon Demon Thousand Refining Pagoda was at least a God Realm creation. If I want to enter the second level, I have to break through the primordial spirit. As soon as he stepped into the second level, Tianyang suddenly felt a force moving his primordial spirit. Of course, it was also extremely weak. No wonder the Dragon Demon Thousand Refining Pagoda is called the best place to cultivate the primordial spirit and physical strength. Tianyang was relieved. He then sensed that the second level had quadruple gravity. The restriction on his true origin was also much stronger. Under the situation where his true origin was circulating so slowly, it was almost impossible for him to break through his cultivation. However, it was very beneficial for other cultivation. There were only 2 months left. Tianyang did not want to waste any time. In a flash, he charged into the third level. The third level had quadruple gravity. However, the fourth level did not have quadruple gravity. Instead, it jumped straight to quadruple gravity. The fifth level only had quadruple gravity. On the sixth level, the gravity soared to 100 times, without any pattern. Tianyang's figure flashed through the Dragon Demon Thousand Refining Pagoda. When he reached the 100th level, Tianyang's gravity had reached 480,000 times. A person weighed about 150 kilograms. 480,000 times 150 kilograms would be 72 million kilograms. This meant that every time he moved his body, he would have to use 72 million gene of strength to move forward. At this point, he was already at the limit of the Tao Fire Realm, a realm between mortals and transcendence. At this moment, the impact of the primordial spirit was finally able to make Tianyang's primordial spirit fluctuate slightly. Their word on the side? Compared to the increase in gravity, what gave Tianyang the most headache was the true essence. At this moment, even if Tianyang had a powerful cultivation technique like the divine desolate heavenly spirit art that could seize the good fortune of the world and go against the will of the heavens, he was still unable to quickly circulate his true essence. His speed was equivalent to 1% of his peak. Tianyang suddenly raised his eyebrows and looked at the stone tablet beside the entrance to the 101st floor. The words on the stone tablet were written in a strange language that did not belong to the Black Sky macro world, but Tianyang could clearly understand the meaning of the words. Trace the past, condense the origin? Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Could this Dragon Demon Thousand Refining Pagoda have something to do with the Sage Emperor condensing the origin? However, Tianyang was unable to decipher anything from these words. His figure flashed, and he rushed up. Just as Tianyang was about to step into the 360th floor after he finished tormenting Wu Zun's peak physical strength, Tianyang was about to step into the 360th floor. This time, it was not the power of the primordial spirit, but an illusion. Finally something new? Tianyang chuckled. He did not immediately activate the power of the sage primordial spirit to break the illusion. Instead, he watched quietly. However, the illusion was not what Tianyang expected. It was not a scene of something he cared about, such as Ling Yuhan. Instead, it was a battlefield. Boom! There was a loud sound, followed by a spurt of blood. Terrifying demonic aura instantly invaded the entire battlefield. Damn demonic bastard. A middle-aged man in full battle armor, holding an almost broken spear, stared at the demonic aura in front of him. Beside him, there was a woman who looked delicate and pretty. She seemed to be holding something in her arms. Jieja, 30,000 years ago, a reaching heaven state sealed me here, so I accepted my fate. Now a half-step reaching heaven realm dares to touch my seal, and even seriously injure me. In the next moment, the demonic aura turned into a human form. On the face of the demonic aura, a pair of eyes flickered with killing intent. At this moment, Tianyang's body shook, and his pupils contracted. This scene, he had seen it in the Great Void Secret Realm, in the Great Void Emperor's 1,000-level refining heart pagoda. However, it's good that you've destroyed my seal. In the next moment, the Demon King roared, and a monstrous demonic aura enveloped the middle-aged man and the woman. Tianyang's heart skipped a beat. His figure flashed, and he appeared in front of the woman. Sure enough, the woman was holding a baby in her arms. Die for me, the Demon King roared, and streams of demonic aura condensed into demonic aura spears, ruthlessly smashing towards the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man waved his sword with all his might, but he still only managed to chop off 6 spears. 3 spears ruthlessly pierced his chest. Blood gushed out, and the demonic aura corroded his body. Even if he circulated his true essence with all his might, he couldn't suppress it. Humph, to be able to make me so angry as a half-step reaching heaven realm, you can be considered strong enough. The Demon King faintly smiled, and in the next moment, demonic aura condensed. It actually formed an incomparably huge demonic aura spear. Not good. The middle-aged man's pupils contracted, and the long sword in his hand swung out a stream of sword aura. However, it simply couldn't shake the demonic aura spear in the slightest. Die! The Demon King roared malevolently, and in the next moment, ruthlessly attacked. Husband. But what the Demon King and the middle-aged man didn't expect was that the woman holding the baby suddenly rushed out. Using the weak cultivation of the 6th level of the Spirit Sea realm, she blocked the Demon King's spear belonging to the reaching heaven realm. No! The middle-aged man instantly went crazy, and without caring about the 3 spears on his body, fiercely rushed out. Liena, you can't die. Husband, I already did my best. The northern wind blew, bringing with it endless cold air. Tianyang also just happened to see the woman raise her hand, seemingly wanting to touch the middle-aged man's face. Unfortunately, she no longer had the chance to raise her hand. Tianyang could also feel that the woman's body temperature was rapidly dropping. Seeing this scene, the man could no longer endure and roared at the sky. Ah! Rolling true essence pressure was released, but unfortunately, while his cultivation was still there, the beauty had already passed away. Right now, I haven't even given you a name. Right now, I'm also about to leave with your mother, so I'll give you a name. The man's face was covered in tears. Looking at the baby, he reached out and stroked the baby's face. His rough palm lightly stroked the baby's cheeks, gradually smoothing out the baby's wrinkles. Today, the heavenly demons invade, and the sun can't be seen. Then, you'll be named Tianyang. May the sun in the sky illuminate the entire world. The man said. In the next moment, a terrifying force acted on the baby's body, and in the next moment, the baby was directly thrown out. At this moment, the man also stood up and laughed wildly at the surrounding demons. Demon bastards, come. Tian Xian, even if I die, I'll drag a few down with me. Terrifying true essence bloomed, and the Demon King's pupils suddenly shrank. In the next moment, a resplendent beam of light devoured the Demon King. You don't want to live anymore. In the next moment, the light dissipated, and the demonic chi also dissipated. The scene in front of him was cut off, and the entrance to the 360th floor of the Dragon Demon 1000 Refining Pagoda changed. As for Tianyang, he was completely stunned on the spot. Looking at the door in front of him, it was as if he was looking at the illusion from before, but he couldn't take that step for a long time. Suddenly, Tianyong felt a chill on the back of his hand. Only then did he realize that he was already crying. Chapter 1370. At this moment, he finally recalled why such a scene would appear in the 1,000-level refining heart tower amidst the 7 emotions and 6 desires. In his previous life, he had been living in a garbage dump since young and had grown up in loneliness. He had thought about his parents more than once. Unfortunately, he didn't have a single clue even when he was a Sword Emperor. Now, after being touched by the 1,000-level refining heart tower and having his final memories dug out by the Dragon Demon 1,000 refining heart tower, Tianyong finally recalled everything. The scene that appeared previously was his parents from his previous life. A dignified saint still shedding tears. How vexing. Tianyong rubbed his eyes and felt as though something in his heart had loosened up. It was as though his heart had been cleansed by clear water and felt empty. His parents had always been his obsession in his previous life. Although he still had them in this life, this obsession was still buried deep in his heart, and Tianyong didn't even notice it. Now, the obsession of a few hundred years had finally been removed, and Tianyong instantly felt empty. His mental state seemed to have unknowingly improved by another level. Next, it's time to cultivate properly. Tianyong smiled and rushed towards the top of the Dragon Demon 1,000 refining heart tower. Although it was said to be 1 or 2 months, in reality, Tianyong was forcefully kicked out by the Dragon Demon 1,000 refining heart tower. However, in this 1 month and 3 days, Tianyong's strength had improved significantly. Not only had his cultivation of a saint stabilized after devouring the demonic chi, even his physical strength and primordial spirit had improved significantly. Now, he had also broken through to the saint realm. Essence, chi, and spirit were all saints. Now, Tianyong was completely confident that if he met Saint Qingming again, he would be able to execute the heaven-devouring secret technique and fight head-on. However, he could only meet Saint Qingming in his dreams now. Although my strength has improved by quite a bit after reaching the saint realm, I am still far from a half-saint emperor. Tianyong stood in front of the Dragon Demon 1,000 refining heart tower and clenched his fists with a heavy heart. If the Dragon Emperor made a move, old ancestor Xianyuan would definitely die. However, Tianyong had to kill old ancestor Xianyuan with his own hands. His current strength was far from enough. Lord Tianyong, you're out so soon? At this moment, a surprised voice sounded from his side. Tianyong raised his eyebrows and found the voice familiar. He looked to the side. Suddenly, a black shadow fell from a towering tree. Boom! The black figure directly fell to the ground. The next moment, he stood up and said in a low, muffled voice, "Well, Lord Dragon Emperor said to invite Lord Tianyong to discuss something with Lord Dragon Emperor after he comes out." This person was none other than Long Yi, who had attacked Tianyong at the beginning. From the looks of it, Tianyong had been waiting outside for Tianyong to come out not long after he went in. Dragon Emperor is looking for me? Tianyong was stunned. He had wanted to leave immediately and continue looking for opportunities to improve his strength. However, the effect of the Dragon Demon 1,000 refining pagoda was indeed not bad. Tianyong had even strengthened the Chaos Origin by about 30%. In terms of movement techniques, the Boundless 9 transformations also relied on the 768th level, which was enough to crush an earthly great saint and the speed of his true yuan that reduced Tianyong to the size of a turtle to reach the 6th transformation. The current Boundless 9 transformations was not inferior to an ordinary great saint's movement technique. Perhaps, when it reached the 7th or 8th transformation, it would directly become a Saint Emperor's technique. The current Tianyong's overall combat strength was more than just a little stronger than before. That's right. It seems to be a little urgent. If Lord Tianyong doesn't have anything important, Long Yi said respectfully. Although he was disdainful of Tianyong at the beginning, after Tianyong saved the Dragon Emperor's life, Long Yi was completely convinced. Not only was he convinced, but he also automatically became Tianyang's subordinate. No, Tianyang was now the honorary Great Elder of the Dragon Demons. It was not wrong to say that he was a subordinate. Then lead the way. Tianyang nodded. He was curious as to why the Dragon Emperor was looking for him. A few minutes later, Tianyang once again saw the Elder's Hall. However, the door of the Elder's Hall had changed. As soon as Tianyang arrived, an elder walked out. It was the elder who was unhappy with Tianyang more than once. Tianyang's honorary Great Elder, Lord Dragon Emperor, invites you inside. That elder said in a muffled voice. Obviously, he was still unhappy with Tianyang. Tianyang smiled faintly. He was too lazy to go through the formalities and directly walked in. However, what surprised Tianyang was that not only was the Demon Dragon Crown Prince in the Elder's Hall, there was also another person that Tianyang did not expect. Linglong Demonis. Haha, Brother Tianyang is here. At this moment, the Dragon Emperor, who was talking to the Demon Dragon Crown Prince, suddenly noticed Tianyang and laughed. Then, he looked at Tianyang with a surprised expression. This month you've changed a lot. It's all thanks to the Dragon Demon 1000 Refining Pagoda. Tianyang smiled. He could now defeat a peak Earth-grade Great Saint and fight with a Heaven-grade Great Saint. However, in front of a true Holy Emperor like the Dragon Emperor, he was still lacking. It was not surprising that he was seen through with a glance. Even with the Dragon Demon 1000 Refining Pagoda, it's not easy to make such progress. The Dragon Emperor sighed. Then he looked at the Demon Dragon Crown Prince. So, this time have you guys decided? Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. So, you guys are almost done with your discussion. I'm not in a hurry. How about we listen to young Master Su's opinion? On the other hand, Linglong softly chuckled as she said. For some reason, after knowing Tianyang's true identity, Linglong Demonis still chose to call Tianyang young Master Su. Tianyang did not want to provoke this woman, so he let her be. What's that? Shumi Domain. At this moment, the Demon Dragon Crown Prince said with a serious expression, a sacred ground of the Western Pure Land. Western Pure Land? Hearing this, Tianyang's pupils shrank. Was the Dragon Emperor's brain kicked by a donkey? He had just recovered, and he wanted to find trouble with the Western Pure Land? Shumi Domain is a sacred ground of the Shumi Temple, a great Buddhist sect in the ancient times. However, because the Shumi Temple was destroyed long ago, the Shumi Domain has always existed. Therefore, the Western Pure Land made it public. As long as one is strong enough, they can choose to go to the Shumi Domain to train. The target of the training is naturally the younger generation. The Demon Dragon Crown Prince said. Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Are you guys still thinking of going to the Shumi Domain? We Dragon Demons are a top clan in the Shintian Great World. Why can't we go? The Dragon Emperor said proudly. My son is giving face to the Western Pure Land by going. Anyway, the Western Pure Land can't defend the Shumi Domain. They just want to give face. It's not considered the Western Pure Land's territory. So, this time, I asked you to come here to find out. Chapter 1371. The Dragon Emperor smiled faintly. However, the smile on his face was not a kind one. Although the Sumer Domain did not completely belong to the blessed lands of West Buddha, it was still within the blessed lands of West Buddha. The Dragon Emperor wanted them to go to the Sumer Domain for two reasons. First, to find opportunities. Second, to cause trouble. The Sumer Domain is not big. Although there are abundant resources and countless treasures, there is a limit to the number of people allowed in. Even if it is the Dragon Demons, there are only a few dozen of them. The true Dragon's sacred domain might not even have them. The Dragon Emperor chuckled. Tianyang was speechless. A few dozen? Only a few dozen? The top clans of the Tianshao Great World were indeed top clans. Just this alone was enough to make the Red Dragon Saint cry. They even wanted to go to the ancestral land of the Dragon Gods for a meeting. However, Tianyang did not reject immediately. He kept thinking. In reality, the reason he came to the Southern Devil Domain was to search for the Azure Profound Flame and rescue Ling Yuhan from the ice seal of the 9 underworlds. Now that he had achieved his goal, the Southern Devil region had no more value. Next, return to the true Dragon's sacred domain. Now that the red dragon saint could not beat him, there was no point in returning to the true dragon's sacred domain. As for finding trouble with the Xinyuan family, that would be suicide. If Tianyang had been a native cultivator of the profound heavenly great world, he would have known all the locations of the mystic realms from the body refinement stage to the current sage realm. Unfortunately, he was not. Then he could only, okay. Tianyang nodded and smirked. Blessed lands of West Buddha. The Vajra body tempering sacred technique he obtained from In Shi's memories was not complete. Tianyang had cultivated to the middle of the second level and could not continue. The Vajra body tempering sacred technique was the signature technique of the Vajra temple. If he went to ask for it directly, he might be cut off. Then, bald donkey of the Vajra temple, you better pray that the Sumeru domain has your sacred technique. Tianyang laughed in his heart. In his previous life, he had been disgusted by the Buddhist sects of the Tianshao Great World. In this life, he had killed many Buddhas. After arriving at the profound heavenly Great World, the first thing he destroyed was the Blood Buddha sect. Tianyang didn't have a bad impression of Buddhism, but he definitely didn't have a good impression of it. Brother Tianyang is really loyal. Dragon Emperor smiled. Then, he looked at Ling Long with a solemn expression. Since Crown Prince Drysa and young Master Su are both going, it doesn't matter whether I go or not. Even when facing an existence like the Dragon Emperor, Ling Long still maintained her charming appearance as she chuckled. The Sumeru domain is so lively. How could this servant not go? Hearing this, the Demon Dragon Crown Prince's expression didn't change much, while the Dragon Emperor's vigilance relaxed. Tianyang was also a little curious. What was going on? No matter how mysterious Ling Long was, she was only a human-grade great saint. Even if she unleashed her full strength, she definitely wouldn't be able to threaten the Dragon Emperor. Speaking of which, Ling Long wasn't a dragon demon. It seemed like her status among the dragon demons wasn't low either. However, Tianyang couldn't be bothered with it. Instead, he thought of something and asked, does the Dragon Emperor know about the current situation in the true dragon sacred domain? After Tianyang killed the Xinyuan family until there were only 2 people left, he was immediately taken away by Yun Xinyuan. He couldn't care about the true dragon sacred domain. After entering the southern Devil Ghost region, Tianyang's mind was filled with thoughts of finding the green profound fire and saving Ling Yuhan. As for the true dragon's sacred domain, he had completely forgotten about it after Ling Yuhan. Now that Ling Yuhan was fine and the Dragon Emperor mentioned it, Tianyang finally remembered. True dragon sacred domain? I'm not sure. Does little Kachin know about it? The Dragon Emperor rubbed his chin and shook his head. He was dealing with enemies and internal affairs. Although the true dragon's sacred domain belonged to the dragon race, it had nothing to do with the dragon demons. Therefore, the Dragon Emperor wasn't very clear about it. The true dragon's sacred domain is still fine. After old ancestor Xinyuan came out of seclusion, he didn't attack the surrounding forces. Instead, he's guarding the ruins of the Xinyuan family. As for Xinyuan Kongming, he also knows that he can't break through the defenses of the true dragon's sacred domain, so he didn't cause any trouble. The Demon Dragon Crown Prince said. Hearing this, Tianyang immediately let out a sigh of relief. If the true dragon's sacred domain was destroyed because of him, Tianyang would definitely feel guilty. Then, let's not delay any longer. Let's head off immediately. Hearing this, the Dragon Emperor nodded and waved his hand. A spatial gate leading to the outside world appeared in front of everyone. This is the reverse space shuttle I just found. It's pretty fast. This place isn't too close to the Sumeru domain, so I'll lend it to you. The Dragon Emperor waved his hand, and a miniature shuttle appeared in the Demon Dragon Crown Prince's hand. If I can show off in front of those bald donkeys in the blessed lands of West Buddha and make them feel disgusted, it would be best if they can't enter the Sumeru domain. The Dragon Emperor chuckled. Hearing this, the Demon Dragon Crown Prince could only nod helplessly. Let's go. Tianyang casually released Ling Yuhan and Yun Xinyuan and stepped out of the spatial gate. A world in a flower, a Bodhi in a leaf. Buddha says, all laws are based on the heart. 1,000 lanterns are better than a single heart lantern. Dang, dang, dang. In the vast and spacious hall, There was only a Buddha statue, a praying mat, and a man wearing a rough hemp robe. He didn't have a single strand of hair, and his eyes were closed as he knocked on a wooden fish. The entire space in the hall seemed to fluctuate slightly due to the repeated knocks. Buddha, may I ask if the Sumeru domain, which entangles the karma of all living beings, can I go? The man in the kasaya clearly didn't open his mouth, but his voice seemed to be tangible as it wrapped around the pillars and didn't dissipate for a long time. As soon as he finished speaking, a ray of light flashed on the Buddha statue. Buddha, thank you for your guidance. It seems that the Sumeru domain is fated with me. The man in the kasaya nodded. After a sincere kowtow, he stood up. Holding a crude staff in his hand, he walked outside. The strange thing was that he didn't even take a few steps. But in the blink of an eye, he was outside. The temple was huge, but the outside world was a barren desert. If it was a big temple, there would only be one monk. Karma. The man raised his head. A faint light flashed between his eyebrows. He shook his head and continued forward. His destination was the Sumeru domain. This time, the Titanium Temple must obtain the treasure of Mount Sumeru in the Sumeru domain. The Titanium Temple, one of the few major Buddhist sects in the blessed land of Western Buddha. The Titanium Temple was not like ordinary Buddhist sections. They paid attention to rules and discipline. In fact, other than cultivating Buddhist doctrine, they were just like ordinary sections. It's said that this time, there are also dragon demons? Someone asked. The leader was wearing a golden red kasaya and smiled disdainfully. Sinners with demon blood flowing in their veins have come to wait for us to convert them. Let's go. There's no time to lose. P.S. Take it. This is the last time I'm watching the third watch. Chapter 1372. The Blessed Lands of the West. Tianyang was riding the reverse space shuttle. As soon as he arrived at the Blessed Lands of the West, he could clearly feel the terrifying power that enveloped the entire place. This power seemed to be able to interfere with a person's mind. Even Tianyang would have been affected if he hadn't gone through the Dragon Demon Thousand Refining Pagoda. The Buddhist sects of the Tianshao Great World also worshipped the Buddha. The Buddhist sects of the Mysterious Sky Great World also worshipped the Buddha. Just who is this Tathagata Buddha? Why is he in every world? Tianyang pondered. It seemed like the Mysterious Sky Great World wasn't the only place. Looking back at the Tianshao Great World, the power of the divine boundary also existed in the Tianshao Great World. No wonder Father said not to come to the blessed lands of the West, if possible. Just by staying in the domain of the blessed lands of the West, I feel like the demon blood in my body is about to go berserk. The demon dragon crown prince took a deep breath and said in a low voice with a solemn expression, "The domain of the blessed lands of the West was indeed very strange. It was extremely lethal to the dragon demons, who had both the dragon clan and the demon clan bloodlines. Fortunately, although the domain was strong, it wasn't as terrifying when it was spread to every corner of the blessed lands of the West. Otherwise, the dragon demons wouldn't have dared to send people into the blessed lands of the West. However, the Meru domain doesn't have the power of the domain. Therefore, we can still find trouble with the Buddhist sections." The demon dragon crown prince chuckled. At this moment, the reverse space shuttle slowed down. Obviously, they were getting closer to the Meru domain. It had only been a day or two since Tianyang's group had set off. They had traveled from the central part of the southern Demon Sea to the northern part of the blessed lands of the West. They had almost crossed half of the Mysterious Sky Great World. Even Tianyang could only sigh in admiration at this level of speed. Tianyang released the power of his primordial spirit. In a short while, he had a clear understanding of the situation below. The Sumeru territory was originally the lair of the Shumi Temple, a major Buddhist sect in the blessed land of the West Buddha. Naturally, it was impossible for them to set up any restrictions on entry like the ancestral land of the dragon god. Even saint emperors could enter the Sumeru domain. However, saint kings completely disdained the treasures of the Sumeru realm. As a result, the younger generation that had reached great saint would all enter the Sumeru realm to train. Using his primordial spirit, he sensed no less than 10 spirit-grade Great Saint auras. Upon closer inspection, there was even an existence that was not weaker than the Xianyuan family's patriarch, Xianyuan Kongming. It seems that the Sumeru domain is indeed one of the top secret realms in the mysterious sky world. Tianyang smiled. At this moment, the reverse void shuttle also flew down. On the other hand, some people down below had noticed the pitch-black and extremely ferocious inverse void shuttle in the air. This is Dragon Emperor's reverse void shuttle? Why is it here? Some experts were shocked. The reverse void shuttle was the great sage tool used by the evil Sky Dragon Emperor. It was famous throughout the great black sky world. Ever since the Dragon Emperor was heavily injured and went into seclusion 1,000 years ago, the reverse void shuttle had not appeared in front of everyone. Now, the reverse void shuttle had appeared again. It seems that the rumor of the Dragon Emperor's recovery is true. The appearance of the reverse void shuttle instantly set off a storm. At this moment, the reverse void shuttle suddenly flashed and appeared on the ground. On the side, a group of bald monks wearing golden red kasayas had extremely ugly expressions. Evil spawn of the dragon demons, how dare you step into the blessed land of the West Buddha? A monk who exuded the power of a human grade, Great Saint instantly stood out and roared at the reverse void shuttle. The dragon demons had the bloodline of the demon clan. Everyone in the upper echelons of the mysterious sky world knew this. Or rather, it could be said that the various major forces were well aware of the basics of this kind of thing. Now, the reverse void shuttle that represented the Dragon Emperor had appeared in the blessed land of the West Buddha. For the Buddhists who had always boasted of eliminating demons and protecting the Tao, this was no different from a slap to the face. In the next moment, the reverse void shuttle flashed and disappeared. Tianyang and his group appeared in front of everyone. Evil spawn. Hearing this, the demon dragon crown prince smiled slightly. He was also at the peak of the human grade, but his strength was more than twice as strong as the monks. Does the Titanium Temple want to reduce their numbers before the Sumeru domain opens? If so, I, the dragon demons, am willing to do it for you. The demon dragon crown prince smiled faintly. His eyes were filled with evil intent. To Tianyang, the dragon emperor, and the demon dragon crown prince, he naturally had to be more polite. However, to the demon dragon crown prince, the demon dragon crown prince, who had almost killed the demon dragon crown prince's father, there was no way he would be nice to them. Evil spawn with demonic blood. How dare you stand in the blessed land of the West Buddha? However, the monk seemed to be a hothead. He roared angrily and released a Buddhist seal in his hand. Lightning erupted. Buddhist art, demon cleansing lightning. The monk uttered a roar as he gathered his Bodhi force and fired terrifying thunderbolts. In an instant, dozens of lightning bolts scattered and blasted towards the demon dragon crown prince from different directions. The demon dragon crown prince's face sank slightly. He snorted, and the dragon flame in his hand burned. With a wave of his hand, the demonic dragon flame ignited the lightning bolts and destroyed them. It seems like the Titanium Temple's idiots want to start a war now. The demon dragon crown prince said faintly. At this moment, the leader of the Titanium Temple also spoke. Demon dragon crown prince, my junior brother didn't do it on purpose. He's just blinded by his demonic blood. Why are you so angry? The moment that person spoke, the aura of a peak earthly great saint was slowly released. Seeing this, the demon dragon crown prince's face sank and the dragon flame in his hand dissipated. Titanium Arhut, you're already so old. Why are you still here in Sumeru domain? The demon dragon crown prince sneered. He was only a little over 3,000 years old, while the Titanium Arhut in front of him was famous 8,000 years ago. If they were of the same age, the demon dragon crown prince wouldn't be afraid of the Titanium Arhut. But now, if the Titanium Arhut attacked, the demon dragon crown prince might not be able to stop him alone. Sumeru domain hadn't opened yet. It wasn't worth it to start a war with the Titanium Arhut now. Hearing this, the leader of the Titanium Temple, the Titanium Arhut, who was also a peak earthly great saint, said faintly, Summer domain belongs to the Buddha. If a Buddhist wants to enter, why should we care about what the world thinks? However, Demon Dragon Crown Prince, I have a request. The titanium Arhut said. Although it was a request, his tone was like an order. Hand over the human beside you, who has the aura of the titanium temple's titanium body refining sacred technique. Chapter 1373. Tell that person to come out. I'll give you face and not do anything for now. The Vajra Arhut said faintly. His golden-red kasaya shone brightly under the sunlight. Tiny bolts of golden lightning flashed around him as he slowly released the aura of a peak Earth-grade great saint. Although it didn't explode in an instant, the increasing pressure caused the faces of the Demon Dragon Crown Prince and the others to turn extremely ugly. What did you say? The Demon Dragon Crown Prince said angrily. Although he didn't know what the Vajra Arhut said about the person with the Vajra body refining saint technique, he might be on their side. Besides, why would the dragon demons be afraid of the Vajra temple? Why would he need the Vajra Arhut to give him face and not do anything? Don't you understand? The Vajra Arhut said faintly. There wasn't any disdain or contempt in his voice, only an innate arrogance. The person named Tianyang, come out and be prepared to be punished by the Vajra temple. The Vajra Arhut ordered. The Demon Dragon Crown Prince was stunned, but Tianyang's expression didn't change. He cultivated the Vajra body refining saint technique and the immortal blood, most often in the Dragon Demon Thousand Refining Pagoda. It was because of the Vajra body refining saint technique that he was able to reach the Saint Lord realm. The aura of the Vajra body refining saint technique couldn't be concealed at all. The Vajra Arhut obviously cultivated the Vajra body refining saint technique as well. The moment they met, Tianyang sensed the ripples on the Vajra Arhut. In comparison, it wasn't hard for the Vajra Arhut to sense Tianyang's aura. Punishment? What did Brother Tianyang do to deserve the punishment of the Vajra temple? Besides, Brother Tianyang is the honorary Grand Elder of the Dragon Demons. If you want to attack Brother Tianyang, you'll have to wait for the battle to start. The Demon Dragon Crown Prince snorted. The Vajra Arhut's expression didn't change. He tapped his staff on the ground and put it away. In the next moment, he flashed. Oh no! Demon Dragon Crown Prince's expression changed. He unleashed his dragon power and charged at King Kong Arhut. However, before the dragon power could form, the Demon Dragon Crown Prince was sent flying by a Buddha palm. In the next moment, the Buddha's power circulated and the Vajra Arhut appeared once again. He went to capture Tianyang. You're not a member of the Vajra temple, yet you cultivate the Vajra body tempering saint technique. This is a capital offense. Great Elder of the Dragon Demons? It's just an evil creature. The Vajra Arhut spoke calmly. His movements were unhurried, as if Tianyang was already in his bag. In fact, the surrounding space had been sealed by the Vajra Arhut. Even if Tianyang wanted to escape, there was no way he could escape. However, when Tianyang saw this, he smiled. He grabbed the Diamond Arhut's outstretched hand with one hand and slapped the Diamond Arhut's face with the other. Pa! A loud sound rang out. The Diamond Arhut's expression froze. Beside him, countless Buddhist and non-Buddhist great saints were dumbfounded. Even though they were able to move through the spatial lockdown, they were unable to escape. It wouldn't be difficult to slap the Diamond Arhut, who was defenseless. But courage was the biggest obstacle to this move. The Diamond Arhut has cultivated the diamond body tempering saint technique to the 3rd level. That slap, that guy's hand will be crippled. Someone couldn't help but comment. The diamond body tempering saint technique was famous in the Xiantian Great World. When it was cultivated to the extreme, the diamond body would be indestructible. Even though the Diamond Arhut had only cultivated a small part of it, his physical strength was something that many sky great saints couldn't compare to. That slap. However, to everyone's surprise, Tianyang didn't just slap the Diamond Arhut. Instead, he used his other hand to slap the Diamond Arhut again. Pa! The Vajra Arhut was rooted to the spot, his cheeks flushed red. Blood trickled down from the corner of his mouth. What? Someone was stunned. At that moment, the Vajra Arhat spoke slowly. You'll be sent to hell if you don't lay down your butcher's knife before the Buddha's punishment. How dare you attack the Arhat? The Buddha will not forgive your sins. In the next instant, bolts of lightning bloomed around the diamond Arhat. The terrifying aura of a peak earth great saint spread throughout the area. Some great saints of the mortal realm, and even the spirit great saints, found it difficult to breathe. The diamond Arhat punched out as well. Boom! The lightning turned into a terrifying electric drill that gathered around his fist and landed on Tianyang's palm. Tianyang smiled faintly. Are you scratching an itch? In the next instant, he kicked the diamond Arhat up and sent him flying into the air. At the same time, he grabbed the diamond Arhat's kasaya with his left hand and punched him hard. Boom! The Vajra Arhat was blasted into the ground by this terrifying punch. The Buddha is merciful, but the diamond Arhat was about to speak when the lightning on his body exploded again, heading towards Tianyang. However, when these lightning bolts struck Tianyang's body, they had no effect at all. Instead, Tianyang grabbed his scalp and pulled him up from the ground before slapping him again. Slap! Slap, 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 slap. In an instant, Tianyang had slapped him countless times. Not only did he use his ethereal force and physical strength, but he also used the power of the godly piercing blade. The diamond Arhat was hit so hard that he was dizzy. However, just as Tianyang was about to kick the diamond Arhat away, the diamond Arhat's eyes widened in anger. You have a death wish. In the next instant, a terrifying Buddhist energy exploded and a giant golden body appeared behind the diamond Arhat. Diamond Exorcism Fist. The diamond Arhat roared and broke free from Tianyang's grip. At the same time, he punched out. The space around him exploded. This was the third level of the diamond body tempering sacred technique, the diamond avatar. Go to hell! The diamond Arhat roared, and the Buddhist energy of the peak of the earth grade exploded. With endless killing intent, he slammed it towards Tianyang. The demon dragon crown prince's expression changed drastically. He shot out streams of dragon flames, but they were extinguished by the diamond Arhat's aura. Linglong's expression changed slightly, but she did not attack. Instead, she allowed the diamond Arhat to attack. Diamond Exorcism Fist. Legend has it that 300 years ago, the diamond Arhat used this fist to kill an earth-grade great sage who was sealed underground. This guy, I'm afraid he's going to die. Serves him right. How dare he slap the diamond Arhat? He must have a death wish. How dare he provoke the diamond temple in the blessed land of the West? There were experts who mocked and ridiculed him, belittling him with disdain. Only an idiot would attack an elite that he could not defeat. They believed that the diamond Arhat was the most powerful being in this place. This is the third level of the diamond body tempering sacred technique. Seeing this, Tianyang's eyes lit up and he slapped out. Slap! The diamond avatar was broken. The diamond body tempering sacred technique was broken. The diamond Arhat. Chapter 1374. Boom! This time, Tianyang didn't hold back. Instead, he sent the Arhat flying with all his might. However, Tianyang didn't expect the Vajra Arhat to be sent flying along with his palm. What's going on? Tianyang was stunned. Tianyang had only slapped the Vajra Arhat earlier because Tianyang had held back. Otherwise, Tianyang had cultivated so many paths, had the chaos origin, and had the strength of a third origin great sage. Even 10 Xinyuan Kongming would have to kneel. What was the Vajra Arhat to him? However, the Vajra Arhat had used his strongest Vajra body tempering saint technique. How could he still be sent flying? Ah! The Vajra Arhat, who had been sent flying by the Sky Sun, stared at the Sky Sun for 3 whole seconds before roaring angrily. The lightning around him exploded violently, gathering into thick pillars of lightning that shot toward Tianyang. Tianyang frowned. He kept blocking with his right hand, left, right, up, and down. He was so fast that he left after images. Just one hand, without any veritable essence energy or any external attacks, blocked all the lightning pillars. The Vajra body tempering saint technique is already at the 3rd level. Why is it still so weak? Tianyang suspected that the Vajra Arhut's third-level Vajra body-tempering Saint technique had been tampered with. He was only at the second level. How could he beat the Vajra Arhut so easily? However, when Tianyang said this, he forgot that he didn't just have a body-tempering martial technique like the diamond body-tempering Saint technique. In fact, the Vajra body-tempering Saint technique wasn't Tianyang's main focus. The immortal divine body and 9 refined dragon body were his main focus. The Vajra body tempering Saint technique was equivalent to building a few more floors on top of the 9 refined dragon body and immortal divine body. The Vajra Arhut had only built a few more floors with the Vajra body tempering Saint technique. Even if he built more floors than Tianyang, he was still outnumbered by Tianyang. How dare you humiliate the Vajra Temple's Saint technique? At that moment, the Vajra Arhut roared and attacked again. A Buddhist seal condensed in his hand. In an instant, a huge golden lion appeared behind him. Immediately after, there was a terrifying roar that shook the origin spirit. Roar! A loud sound rang out. Tianyang frowned slightly as the power of his primordial spirit trembled. The methods of the Buddhist sect were still somewhat effective. At least, this lion's roar had caused Tianyang's primordial spirit to fluctuate a few times. Of course, it was just a few moves. Demon Vanquishing Staff. Suddenly, a giant staff appeared in the Vajra Arhut's hand. Then, mysterious runes lit up on the staff. It swept towards Tianyang's head with a terrifying force. Compared to the Vajra Arhut's resistance, this was much stronger. Even the Demon Vanquishing Staff is out. This guy really pissed off the Vajra Arhut. At that moment, someone spoke up. He looked at Tianyang with pity and shook his head. Demon Vanquishing Staff, a great saint weapon. In the Vajra Temple, it was a powerful Dharma weapon that was second only to the temple's treasure. With the Vajra Arhut's strength, he could fully unleash the power of the Demon Vanquishing Staff. An earthly great saint at the peak of the earthly great saint realm, coupled with a fully activated great saint weapon. Even a heavenly great saint would have to think twice before taking this move head-on. At that moment, Tianyang smiled faintly. A black light flashed in his hand. Boom! A loud sound rang out. It was completely different from the sound of a skull exploding. Their pupils constricted. Upon closer inspection, a black sword suddenly appeared between Tianyang's head and the Demon Vanquishing Staff. The black sword was simple and unadorned. There were no runes carved on it, but just like that, it blocked the Demon Vanquishing Staff 5 centimeters from Tianyang's head. No matter how the Vajra Arhut roared, he could not move the Demon Vanquishing Staff an inch. A great saint weapon? Tianyang smiled. The great void sword embryo vibrated. The Demon Vanquishing Staff was shaken away. In the next instant, Tianyang disappeared. With terrifying speed, he appeared in front of the Vajra Arhut in an instant. The blade was less than a centimeter away from the Vajra Arhut's neck. The Vajra Arhut could even feel the sharpness of the great void sword embryo. Even the skin on his neck twitched. Too fast. Even if a great sage was extremely fast, it would still take time to accelerate. Previously, he was thousands of meters away from the heavenly sun. Even a great sage would need at least 0.01 milliseconds to reach him. With the strength of the Vajra Arhut's primordial spirit, he could easily injure Tianyang before he reached him. However, reality was far beyond his expectations. Even he did not know how long it had been. He only knew that before his primordial spirit sensed the threat, Tianyang's blade was already at his neck. You dare to kill. The Vajra Arhut resisted the urge to admit defeat and said hoarsely. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly and pressed his blade even closer to the Vajra Arhut. Half a centimeter of the Vajra Arhut's flesh had already been cut open by Tianyang. I'm not killing you because you still have some value to me. At such a close distance, it would be easy for Tianyang to kill the Vajra Arhut. However, Tianyang also sensed that there was a seal within the Vajra Arhut's primordial spirit. If the Vajra Arhut's primordial spirit was forcefully devoured, the seal would destroy everything. If they had encountered restrictions left behind by earth or sky great sages in the past, with heavenly sun strength, it would have been a piece of cake to remove them. However, the seal was set up by the Holy Emperor. Tianyang could not remove it. That was why Tianyang did not kill the Vajra Arhut immediately. However, if the Vajra Arhut went too far, Tianyang would kill him immediately. After all, the Vajra Arhut had the Vajra body tempering sacred technique. Even if the Vajra Arhut did not have it, he could go to the Vajra temple and snatch it. Everyone gasped at the sight. They did not expect Tianyang to actually kill the Vajra Arhut. Sensing that the blade was only a few centimeters away from severing his neck, the Vajra Arhut shut up completely. Benefactor, as the saying goes, lay down the butcher's knife and repent. The Vajra Arhut only spoke a few words. Why take his life? At this moment, a young man wearing a coarse kasaya and holding a wooden Buddhist staff walked out. He looked ordinary and smiled faintly. Tianyang's eyes narrowed. This coarse monk was something. Where did this holy mother come from? Tianyang asked flatly. Who could be more capable than Patriarch Xianyuan and Saint Qingming? Even if Tianyang did not want to kill the Vajra Arhut, it was not because of this holy mother's advice. I don't know what a holy mother is, but in other words, the Vajra Arhut's death is of no value to you, benefactor. Instead, it will be a waste of your energy. I'm sure you wouldn't do something like that, benefactor. The coarse monk smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes lit up. The people of the Vajra temple were not the only ones who had arrived. The other 3 Buddhist sects had also arrived. Killing the Vajra Arhut would not only give him nothing, but the other 2 Buddhist sects might also attack him together. It was not worth it. That makes sense, Tianyang said flatly as the great void sword embryo disappeared from his hand. However, I'm not interested in becoming a Buddha. If you tell the Demon Dragon Crown Prince, you'll be killed. Tianyang walked back to the Demon Dragon Crown Prince and said casually. Hearing this, the Demon Dragon Crown Prince was speechless. Did he really think that he was blind? This coarse monk's strength was unfathomable. Did he think that he would kill him just because of one sentence? Indeed, after entering the world, one should not speak carelessly. Thank you for your guidance. Chapter 1375. After the coarse cloth monk's useless mediation, the Vajra Arhut managed to keep his life. Of course, Tianyang's great void sword embryo wasn't that easy to bear. The wound on the Vajra Arhut's neck was nothing to a supreme saint, but it would last for at least 3 days under the influence of the great void sword embryo's power. In other words, the Arhut of the Vajra temple would have to bear a sword scar for 3 days before he could speak. Therefore, even though Tianyang had let him go, the Vajra Arhut still hated Tianyang. Tianyang, on the other hand, was extremely calm. He was waiting for the Vajra Arhut to come out and take a beating. He wanted to take the Vajra Arhut's Vajra body tempering sacred technique, but he didn't want to beat the crap out of him. Now that the Vajra Arhut had come to seek his own death, Tianyang was overjoyed. He slapped the Vajra Arhut so hard that he started to doubt himself. It wouldn't be too late to think about how to deal with the Buddhist restriction after they returned to the Sumeru domain. All right, there shouldn't be any factions that would dare to provoke the dragon demons now, Tianyang said casually. The Demon Dragon Crown Prince was stunned for a moment before he looked touched. It turned out that Tianyang had beaten up the Vajra Arhut because he wanted the demonic dragon clan to gain prestige among the factions present. Brother Tianyang, don't worry. If there's anything we need in the Sumeru domain, you'll be the first to get it. The Demon Dragon Crown Prince patted Tianyang's shoulder and said firmly. Tianyang? ? The Vajra Arhut returned to the Vajra temple's camp with a gloomy expression. A man in a long green robe walked over. He didn't have a Buddhist staff, nor was he wearing kasaya. He glanced at the Vajra Arhut's neck and smiled mockingly. I saw you getting beaten up as soon as I arrived. Why? Aren't you going to fight back? The Vajra Arhut's expression darkened when he heard Duan Ling Tian's words. Bastard from the blissful sect, go F***CK your own woman. Don't mess with the Vajra temple. The blessed lands of the West had numerous Buddhist branches, but the strongest were the three great Buddhist gates of the blessed lands of the West: the Vajra Temple, the Bodhi Gate, and the Blissful Sect. Among them, the Bodhi sect's rules were the strictest. On the other hand, the Blissful Sect could no longer be considered as an ordinary sect on the continent. In the blessed land of the West, the Blissful Sect did not have a good reputation. TSK, you're still trying to show off even after being beaten up like this. The guys from the Titanium Temple are really prideful. Hearing this, the green-robed man smiled disdainfully. In any case, once we reach the Sumeru domain, there will be a battle sooner or later. Then, the green-robed man disappeared in a flash. The Vajra Arhat's expression softened a little when he saw the green-robed man leave. However, his expression was still ugly. If there was a ranking list of evil sects in the Black Sky Great World, the Vajra Arhat did not know how many evil sects were on the list. However, the Blissful Sect was definitely in the top 10. The Blissful Sect cultivated the blissful Zen. To the outside world, it was said that it was a dual cultivation with a woman. In reality, it was all bullshit. It might take 4 to 5 days of cultivation progress. However, the longer one cultivated the blissful Zen, the weaker the woman would become. In the end, the woman would be drained of all her true core strength and life essence. She would become a part of the man. This was a taboo in most Buddhist sections. Most of the time, they would refer to the woman as a young man, a monk, or a nun. However, the Blissful Sect did not have such taboos. Blissful Zen from the Blissful Sect. He cultivates evil Buddhist techniques. Ignore him. Suddenly, another person appeared in front of the Vajra Arhat. He was wearing an ordinary monk's robe. It was different from the bright kasaya of the Vajra Temple. This monk's robe was pure white. However, the Vajra Arhat's expression turned serious when he saw this person. He was the peerless genius of the Bodhi sect, the strongest of the three major Buddhist sects in the blessed lands of the West. The Bodhi sect was the only one of the three major Buddhist sects in the blessed lands of the West that had a holy emperor. The strongest cultivators in the Vajra Temple and the Blissful Sect were only half-holy emperors. However, you are unable to subdue the sinner's blood of the devil race. Clearly, your Buddhist cultivation is still not enough. Bodhi said flatly. The Vajra Arhat's eyes revealed a hint of fear. If the Blissful Sect's blissful heaven was unscrupulous, then Bodhi Bodhisattva was an extremely stubborn Buddhist cultivator. The Bodhi sect was the most orthodox Buddhist sect in the Shantian Great World. Similarly, they had the deepest hatred for the devil race. Bodhi had perfectly inherited the characteristics of the Bodhi sect. It could be said that he was willing to do anything to carry out the Buddhist path of the Bodhi sect. However, I did not expect a genius of Tianyang's level to fight for the dragon demons. Your defeat is not surprising. Bodhi said flatly. His entire body exuded a powerful aura. His eyes were as clear as water as he looked at Tianyang. The Sumer domain is about to open. It is not the time to eliminate the devil race. That is why I will not act for now. However, if you lose to Tianyang again, do not appear in the blessed lands of the West again. Bodhisattva Bodhi said indifferently. Then, he slowly left. The Vajra Arhat's expression was extremely ugly. The three major Buddhist sects cooperated with each other, but they also competed with each other. Now that he had been defeated, the blissful Zen had come to disgust him. On the other hand, Bodhi had belittled his strength in front of him. In the Sumeru domain, whether or not you can beat that heavenly sun is still unknown. The Vajra Arhat gritted his teeth. However, his expression changed. Why did the name Tianyang sound so familiar? At this moment, Bodhi, who had returned to the Bodhi sect's camp, suddenly looked up. He looked at the originally empty space. On the ground, a grain of sand slowly rose into the air and floated in midair. Everyone's expression changed when they saw this. So fast, the demon dragon crown prince was stunned. His expression turned grave. On the blissful Zen sect's side, the blissful Zen sect's blissful Zen sect chuckled. Is this the signature move of the Sumeru temple? In the next moment, The grain of sand shone with a dazzling light. Wisps of space force were unleashed, encapsulating the area within 10,000 meters from him. A grain of sand can contain a world like the Sumeru domain. Back then, the Sumeru temple was really powerful. Tianyang muttered to himself. The demon dragon crown prince said hurriedly, "Now that the Sumeru domain is open, you can enter it with just a thought." At this moment, the people from the Vajrak temple, the blissful Zen sect, and the Bodhi sect had already disappeared. The coarse-clothed monk who had suddenly appeared had also entered the Sumeru domain. "Oh no, they beat us to it." The demon dragon crown prince's expression changed. He immediately released a treasure and enveloped the dragon demons and the others. In the next moment, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Their figures disappeared. Chapter 1376. Boom! A series of terrifying spatial fluctuations erupted from a mountain. In the next moment, a few figures appeared on a mountain peak. It was different from the last time they went to the ancestral land of the dragon god, where they were disturbed and dispersed. This time, countless people entered the Sumeru domain at the same time, but they could not disturb the demon dragon crown prince at all. It seemed that the treasure that had suddenly enveloped the demonic dragon clan was indeed an incredible existence. This treasure has no use. Normally, it's only used to hide one's aura and restrain it within the treasure's range. Seeing Tianyang's curious gaze, the demon dragon crown prince smiled. "This time, I suddenly thought of it, so I took it out." Hearing this, Tianyang nodded slightly. That was not bad. However, the situation in the Sumeru domain, it was different from what Tianyang had imagined. At this moment, they were on a mountain peak. It looked like a mountain peak at the edge of a world. As far as the eye could see, there were layers upon layers of mountains, as if they covered a huge mountain range that spanned countless miles. Furthermore, the further they went, the taller they were. The Sumeru domain was created by Saint Monk Shumi of the Sumeru Temple with the Sumeru Temple's Sumeru domain. Most of the small worlds are isolated, separated, and then created again. It's equivalent to relying on an entire world to exist. The Bantan Simeon small world, the true dragon sacred world, and the dragon demons are all like this. Demon Dragon Crown Prince explained. Hearing this, Heavenly Sun slightly nodded. However, he still didn't understand what this Sumeru domain that was filled with mountains was. The Sumeru domain is completely different. It's a powerful divine ability created with one flower, one world and Buddhism as the foundation. Our small worlds are used as nests. Therefore, they cannot be moved. Once they are created, they will be fixed there before they are destroyed. The Sumeru domain is different. The Sumeru domain created not only has everything that a small world has, but also because it's only a grain of sand. Even if it's in the Milky Way, it will still exist. Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. He immediately thought of his own Vientiane Sky Market. However, regardless of whether it was the Vientiane Sky Ruins or the Earth Emperor's spiritual Her Garden, they could only be considered as a space and not a small world. A small world needed to have a complete set of laws. At the same time, it needed to have its own heaven and earth spiritual chi. Tianyang's Wanxiang Sky Ruins did not possess a complete set of nomological laws. It could only maintain a stable existence. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth was also absorbed from the outside world. Tianyang could make a breakthrough inside. For example, he could make a breakthrough from the beginner sage realm to the middle sage realm. This kind of pure accumulation of energy was still possible. However, it was absolutely impossible for him to make a breakthrough from the sage realm to the great sage realm. This was because the complete set of rules restricted the use of the Wanxiang Sky Ruins. Even so, the Vientiane Sky Market relied on Tianyang to exist. This Sumeru domain was actually just a grain of sand, and it was also a small world with complete Tao laws. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that such a divine ability could split the heavens and earth apart. However, although Saint Monk Shumi was the most powerful ancestral master of the Sumeru Temple and the most powerful person in the mysterious sky great world at that time, he had traveled the galaxy and witnessed countless lives and deaths. He only created a rough version of Sumeru in a mustard seed. These 108,000 Sumer mountains are the pillars that support the Sumeru domain, the Mo Dragon Crown Prince said. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded and immediately understood. The battle in the Sumeru domain is completely different from the other secret realms. The other secret realms are just small worlds that people can explore. However, in the Sumeru domain, you have to fight for something called the Power of Wish. Only when your Power of Wish reaches the top 10 can you step into the 10 most powerful Sumer mountains among the 108,000 Sumer mountains, the Mo Dragon Crown Prince said. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded to show that he understood. At the same time, a portion of the 108,000 Sumer mountains have powerful inheritances. If you're lucky enough, not only will there be treasures in the Sumer mountains, there will also be Power of Wish. Therefore, Brother Tianyang, you and I should leave a space token so that we can take care of each other. Let's fight for ourselves, the Mo Dragon Crown Prince said. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded. Space power gathered in his hand and turned into a space token within 1,000 miles. Once crushed, it would automatically open a space gate to summon Tianyang. The Mo Dragon Crown Prince gave the space token that he had prepared beforehand to Tianyang. Then, he quickly left with Linglong. There was one thing that Tianyang knew before he left. The Sumer domain would only be open for a short 81 days. In 81 days, there were at least 500 great saints who wanted to enter the final 10 Sumer mountains. The competition would be extremely fierce. Yuhan, Yun Xinyuan come out. Tianyang waved his hand. Ling Yuhan and Yun Xinyuan walked out. However, before Tianyang could speak, Yun Xinyuan spoke first. I could do it alone. Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. Then, he nodded and also formed a space token. Be careful. In this kind of competition, in the end, everyone would be enemies. Yin Xuanyuan's departure was exactly what he wanted. Thank you. Yin Xinyuan nodded. Then, she randomly chose a direction and flew away. She didn't know why she said those words as soon as she came out. However, she understood. Staying by Tianyang's side wouldn't be useful. Ling Yuhan, on the other hand, held the high-grade Saint longsword that the dragon demons had given her. She smiled and came to Tianyang's side. It was just like when the two of them fought side by side in the Sky Continent. Then, Tianyang smiled, but didn't immediately move to fight for the power of will that had appeared in the 108,000 Sumer mountains. Instead, he sat cross-legged at the edge of the Sumer mountains. The power of the Sage Realm's primordial spirit was released, covering a radius of 10,000 miles. Master is going to rob again? Seeing this, Ling Yuhan chuckled. She understood Tianyang's intention. How could fighting for it be faster than robbing? Tianyang sat there and released the power of his primordial spirit. When the fight was over, Tianyang would run over and reap the benefits. It's not called robbery. This is called efficient use of time. Tianyang smiled. At this moment, a roar came from under Tianyang's butt. Roar! In the next moment, an incomparably terrifying primordial spirit erupted from the Sumer mountains. Mixed with magma, it sprayed toward Tianyang. What the hell? Tianyang was stunned. He immediately took action and froze the magma in midair. Below, the Sumer mountains split open. From within, a giant flame python suddenly charged out. The aura of a spirit-grade great saint erupted from the giant flame python. At the same time, it looked at Tianyang's snake eyes. Chapter 1377. This was a giant python the size of Mount Meru. If not for the translucent flames on its body that made Tianyang realize that this was not a real magical beast, Tianyang would have thought that the entire Mount Meru had been hollowed out by this flame python. Even so, it was a very stressful thing to look at such a huge flame python. In particular, the python's eyes, which were larger than Tianyang's entire body, were filled with greed. To put simply, this thing wanted to eat Tianyang. Spiritual fire? It's not a spiritual fire or a fire spirit. Where did this demon come from? Seeing this, the corner of Tianyang's mouth twitched. He had thought that Mount Meru just so happened to have a spiritual fire. The azure profound fire had already been integrated into the true flames of destruction by the heavenly sun. In any case, the heavenly sun could separate the true flames of destruction if he wanted to. Thus, the true flames of destruction had officially entered the Eighth Order. Although it had reached a level where no spiritual fire in the entire Xintian great cosmos could surpass it, for Tianyang, who had the divine flame of all things, the more the better. Unfortunately, this flame python was not a spiritual fire at all. The flame python roared angrily. Its entire body was covered in flames as it charged viciously at Tianyang. It opened its bloody mouth and spat out a thick flame energy. In just a few tenths of a second, everything around it seemed to be on fire. The temperature rose by at least 1,000 degrees. Tianyang did not know if eating the flame python would be of any use. However, the flame python would definitely evolve after eating Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled. He waved his hand. A strange power appeared in the air. The power of the flame was like a word being erased by an eraser. It was completely erased from this world. The Tao of space is really mysterious. Tianyang muttered to himself as he looked at the surging Tao of space in his hand. Just now, Tianyang used the Tao of space to wipe out the flame python's attack. In the past, Tianyang might have condensed the Tao of space on his sword and cut down the flame. Now, Tianyang could do that. His understanding of the Tao of space was much stronger than before. Then, I'll use you to test the Tao of space that I've just learned. Tianyang smiled and punched out from hundreds of meters away. However, there weren't any space-shattering fist winds erupting from Tianyang's fist. Everything looked very calm on the surface. Even the flame python was slightly stunned. At this moment, a terrifying fist force came from behind and struck the body of the flame python. The flame python's scales were smashed by the fist Tao of space were shattered. The flame python's body was completely destroyed. Of the flame python was the flame python's body. Its body flame, its body, and its body the size of a mountain. Flames burst out, and the snake tail swung with all its might. Boom! Just the strength of the swing alone was enough to destroy a part of the space. Not to mention, there was also the strange and powerful Tao of fire. Bang! Tianyang blocked the attack with his left hand. However, his chi and blood were in turmoil. The 9 refined dragon body 8th refinement, the immortal divine body 3rd layer, and the Vajra body tempering sacred arts 2nd layer. A red mark appeared on his body. Interesting. Tianyang smiled. His left hand reached out and grabbed the flame python's tail. Then he swung it hard. In an instant, an unparalleled violent force erupted from Tianyang's body. The flame python was like a windmill as it was swung around by Tianyang. The flame python roared and exploded, turning into flames. Then it quickly shot out and formed a body in another place. However, this body was undoubtedly much weaker than the mountain-like body from before. It's not a fire spirit or spiritual fire. Could this guy be a flame spirit? Tianyang raised his eyebrows. This was the first time Tianyang had seen such a flame life form. However, this was the first time he had seen it. Sky Sun had also sensed that swallowing the giant flame python was useless against the true extermination flames. Since it was useless, he would just kill it. At this moment, the flame python saw that Tianyang could not be killed. It turned its gaze and saw Ling Yuhan. A ferocious glint flashed across the enormous snake's eyes. In an instant, it shot out. Its target was Ling Yuhan. Ling Yuhan was stunned. This flame python knew how to bully the weak and fear the strong. In an instant, the flame python roared and shot out a huge flame beam from its mouth. On the surface of Ling Yuhan's body, the Tao of ice condensed. Her translucent icy hair turned snow white. Behind her, 9 huge white fox tails appeared. Get lost! Ling Yuhan slashed out with her sword. The 9-tailed heavenly moon, fox bloodline erupted. In front of this level of ice power, the flaming light beam was instantly blown into smithereens. The remaining sword light also sent countless flame pythons flying. Why is this flame python so weak? Tianyang raised his eyebrows. This flame python had the aura of a spiritual great saint, but did not have the strength of a spiritual great saint. Only the snake tail had some strength. The rest were just ordinary attacks of a great saint. The sixth transformation of the heavenly expanse, 9 transformations, was activated. In an instant, Tianyang's figure appeared in front of the flame python. The flame python seemed to have a certain level of consciousness. Before Tianyang attacked, it frantically retreated and roared. However, Tianyang reached out and grabbed, using the Tao of Space. In an instant, the space where the flame python was replaced by the space in front of Tianyang. Tianyang used the chaos origin to comprehend the Tao of Space to the Saint Realm, and learned this move. Seeing that Tianyang seemed to be about to kill it, the flame python was instantly scared out of its wits. It kept roaring and circulating the energy in its body. However, unlike the Tao of Fire, this energy did not seem to have any offensive power. Through the translucent body, one could see that the flame python's body was gathering little by little. What's this? Tianyang raised his eyebrows. At this moment, a terrifying lightning bolt shot out. It directly penetrated the flame python's head. A suction force erupted and directly snatched away the ball of light that had gathered. The flame python instantly vanished in a thin air, and Tianyang's brows furrowed tightly. Where did this guy come from? He doesn't even know what the Sumera domain wants. A disdainful voice sounded. This ball of wish I wanted. Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. Then, his face became a little cold. The corners of his mouth curled up. Chapter 1378. Now that I've taken the power of Val, go back to where you came from. A disdainful sneer came from a man in the sky. At the same time, the powerful aura of an earthly great sage erupted from his body. An earthly great saint would have a huge advantage even if he were to face the Vajra Temple, Blissful Sect, or the 3 great Buddhist sects, as long as he wasn't up against existences like the Vajra Arhat, Bodhi Arhat, or the Celestial Bliss. In other words, an earthly great sage was almost invincible in the early stages of the Sumera domain. Therefore, it was normal for an invincible existence to be domineering. What? Are you still not leaving? The earthly great sage sneered in the sky. The aura of an earthly great sage was released slowly, covering a radius of 1,000 meters. The oppressive might was almost tangible, causing Ling Yuhan to feel a little breathless. At the end of the day, Ling Yuhan was only a saint, and the saint path that he had cultivated was not much. Even though he possessed a powerful bloodline, cultivation technique, and constitution, he was still unable to match up to Heavenly Yang, who was able to slay enemies of a higher cultivation realm than him as easily as chopping vegetables. In that case, don't even think about leaving. The person beside me, come here first. The earthly great sage laughed and punched out with his right fist. A strong suction force burst out. His target was naturally Ling Yuhan. Ling Yuhan's looks were considered top-notch in the Xiantian major cosmos, where spiritual energy was abundant and beauties of all levels were everywhere. This earthly great saint naturally noticed the peerlessly beautiful Ling Yuhan the moment he arrived. At this moment, Tianyang made a move. There was a flash of lightning in his eyes. A terrifying spatial crack instantly opened behind the earthly great sage. Streaks of chaotic spatial blades shot out from the cracks. Spatial Saint Tao. The earthly great sage's expression changed slightly. He immediately made a move. Silver light blade. In an instant, the spatial crack and the countless spatial blades were destroyed by the earthly great sage's attack. The Tao of Space is just SOSO. However, you still dare to attack an earthly great saint. I have underestimated your courage. The earthly great sage smiled maliciously. In the next moment, his body flashed and appeared in front of Ling Yuhan. Little girl, give me first. Boom! A fist passed through the space and landed on the left side of the earthly great sage. An incomparably ferocious fist force burst out. The earthly great saint was frozen in place by a blast of energy that penetrated his body. What followed was his entire skull had exploded. At this moment, a ray of light flew out of the flesh and blood. It condensed into a human face. The earthly great sage had a look of fear. It could be clearly seen. My head was smashed with a single punch. The earthly great saint stared at his headless corpse in disbelief. This speed, this strength, wasn't this a little too fast? Even a Vajra might not be able to do this. Wait, Vajra, are you the one who defeated the Vajra? The earthly great sage roared. Hearing this, Tianyang raised an eyebrow. So this guy was not retarded. He just did not recognize him. Well, not everyone was paying attention to the Vajra. Moreover, the Sumer domain was open to the public for 3 days. Perhaps this person had just arrived and did not see Tianyang's performance in suppressing the Vajra. Seeing that Tianyang did not refute, the earthly great sage's golden primordial spirit body started to tremble violently. Its color gradually turned pale. The Vajra, that you? You are a great man. I am a great man. I'm not a great man, Tianyang said indifferently. Then, he threw out his sword. Flying immortal sword. The terrifying power of the Saint Realm Sword Dao exploded and locked onto the earthly great sage. He could not retreat. In the end, the great void sword embryo flew out and pierced through his primordial spirit. His primordial spirit body exploded. Even the fragments of his primordial spirit were devoured by Tianyang. He was completely dead. The power of will that the earthly great sage had snatched away earlier returned to Tianyang's hands. As soon as Tianyang touched it, he felt a strange power enter his sea of spirit. It was as if it had seeped into his primordial spirit. It was as if he was soaked in warm water. There was a warm feeling. This power of will is quite powerful. Tianyang smiled and looked at Ling Yuhan. Why don't you go back first? Ling Yuhan could at most unleash the power of an advanced saint. It was too dangerous in the Sumer domain where great sages were everywhere. Yun Xianyuan had at least broken through to the intermediate saint realm. With the mystical beauty-ing body, she had the power of a human great sage. Even if she could not defeat her opponent, she could use the mystical beauty-ing body to escape quickly. However, Ling Yuhan did not. I don't want to. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan shook her head hard and looked stubborn. I don't believe that I can't become stronger with the 9 Nether Frost formula, the 9 Nether Saint body, and the bloodline of the 9-tailed moon fox. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled bitterly. Since the northern wilderness region, Tianyang knew Ling Yuhan's stubborn and serious character. In order to catch up with him, Ling Yuhan had spent a lot of effort. Then, if you encounter danger, go back immediately. This is an order, Tianyang said. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan smiled. Of course. As soon as she finished speaking, Tianyang raised his eyebrows, and his expression changed slightly. Someone has snatched a lot of power of will so quickly. Seeing Tianyang's change, Ling Yuhan asked curiously. Hearing this, Tianyang shook his head with a strange expression. Now, there is no one nearby who can surpass us. However, someone has been snatched away. Snatched away? Who? Hearing this, Ling Yuhan was stunned. At this time, Tianyang hesitated for a few seconds, then used the 6th transformation of the heavenly expanse, 9 transformations, and rushed in the direction he sensed. The speed of the heavenly expanse, 9 transformations, was extremely fast. In an instant, a roar rang in Tianyang's ears. Damn it! Do you guys from the Buddhist sect only know how to take advantage of others? Waves of dragon power swept out and separated in midair. One of them charged toward the mountain giant in front of him. The other one charged toward the bald monk behind him. You and I are both cultivators who have obtained power of will in the Sumer domain. How can you say that we are taking advantage of others? It's just that when we were obtaining power of will, you guys just happened to appear in front of us. The bald monk smiled faintly and released the aura of a great saint at the peak of the spiritual grade. The Buddhist staff in his hand pointed in midair. A terrifying golden beam of light shot towards the center of the waves. Damn it! The figure in the center of the waves instantly changed his expression and attacked with the trident in his hand. However, before the dragon power could erupt, the golden beam of light suddenly disappeared. Long time no see, Sea Dragon Prince. Heavenly Sun appeared on the waves between the two of them and chuckled at the waves. Tianyang. Chapter 1379. The golden light in his left hand was extinguished, and the waves in his right hand were pushed back. Both attacks were terrifyingly powerful, but Tianyang simply stood in the middle of them with a smile on his face, allowing the attacks from both sides to rain down on him. What shocked the two of them the most was, despite being hit by two attacks at the same time, the Heavenly Sun did not suffer any damage. Tianyang. The expression of the person in the waves changed instantly. He waved the trident in his hand, and the huge waves shrank into a stream of true origin and merged with the trident. At this moment, Ling Yuhan was taken aback. Isn't this the Azure Sea Dragon Clan's Sea Dragon Prince Hai Yuanxiong? Tianyang smiled. Hai Yuanxiong gritted his teeth and looked at Tianyang with a complicated expression. Logically speaking, Tianyang had killed his clan member, Hai Tian, and defeated him in front of everyone in the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. He should hate him to the core. However, no matter how he thought about it, Hai Yuanxiong could not bring himself to hate him. Tianyang had appeared in front of him for so long, and Hai Yuanxiong just remembered that the two of them should be enemies. Who are you? I'm seeking an opportunity, and you're trying to stop me. Are you trying to stop Buddhism? At that moment, the bald old monk spoke with a cold expression. Streams of Buddhist power gathered in his hands. He had already used 90% of his strength to deal with Hai Yuanxiong. If Tianyang joined the fray, he would definitely lose, even if he was a spiritual grade great sage. What block? Heavenly Sun was startled. Wasn't your attack the one that happened to fly toward me? I'm still seeking an opportunity, and you're attacking me. Do you have a death wish? Tianyang said. Hearing that, the bald old monk's face turned green and white. It was extremely ugly. This guy must have been here a long time ago. Furthermore, he had overheard their entire conversation. Leave. I can deal with this monk myself, Hai Yuanxiong said with a complicated expression. Although I don't know how you can fight a spirit grade great saint, I still want to say it. With your current intermediate saint realm cultivation base, you'll definitely lose if you continue to fight. Tianyang smiled. Hearing this, Hai Yuanxiong's face turned even uglier. After her crushing defeat in the ancestral dragon godland, Hai Yuanxiong had learned her lesson and focused on cultivation. She had broken through to the intermediate saint stage. With his powerful saint path and various treasures, he could even fight a spirit grade supreme saint like the bald old monk. However, the true yuan of a mid-level saint was far inferior to that of a spirit grade great saint. Moreover, the power of a treasure was limited. Although the current Hai Yuanxiong was able to continue blocking the bald old monk's attacks, she would sooner or later be exhausted to death. What you said? Where did this fellow come from? How dare you obstruct this poor monk? Seeing that Tianyang completely ignored him and instead went to talk to Hai Yuanxiong, the bald old monk suddenly felt a wave of humiliation from being looked down upon. In an instant, his figure flashed and appeared in front of Tianyang. Buddhist energy erupted from his hand. Dhyana Mudra. In an instant, the surrounding space shook as if it had frozen. In the next moment, the bald old monk roared again. Sky-coiling dragon tiger fist. Boom! Like the roar of a dragon and a tiger, streams of Buddhist energy formed a dragon and a tiger behind the bald old monk. They carried an incomparably powerful, demon-subduing power. Golden light exploded from the fist, and it carried an extremely destructive force as it ruthlessly blasted toward Tianyang. The Dhyana Mudra froze space. It was the strongest attack of the sky-coiling dragon tiger fist. Ever since the bald old monk cultivated to the spirit grade great saint realm, he had fused countless martial techniques together. This move had never failed before. The time it took for an ordinary person to break through the frozen space was enough for his sky-coiling dragon tiger fist to kill them. Bang! However, the fist that had formed a dragon and a tiger did not explode with its true power before it crashed into a palm. A pitch-black, demonic flame rose from the palm. In an instant, all of the Buddhist energy turned into nothingness. How is this possible? Seeing this, the bald old monk's expression changed drastically. He wanted to withdraw his hand and escape, but he did not expect Tianyang's palm to be sticky. When his fist came into contact with Tianyang's palm, he could no longer withdraw his hand. Sky-coiling dragon tiger fist? In the Buddhist sects, there are relatively few such ferocious and domineering sections. If he's from the Titanium Temple, he should know who I am. That must be one of the four major branches of the Titanium Temple, Pan-Tian Temple. At this moment, Hai Yuanxiong spoke up. She looked at Tianyang, who had subdued the bald old monk with a single move. He hadn't even used a single move. He had merely blocked a single blow and had subdued the old monk that she had been fighting with for a long time. Although Tianyang could also defeat her in the ancestral dragon godland and even kill the holy sun Xianyuan, Hai Yuanxiong knew that the gap between her and Tianyang was not that big. But now, Tianyang had dealt with a spirit-grade great saint while she was only a mid-level great saint. Hai Yuanxiong immediately realized the gap between them. Who was the real, peerless genius? So it has something to do with the Titanium Temple. Tianyang smacked his lips. The blessed land of West Buddha was relatively closed off. Although he had a great reputation outside because he had almost destroyed the Xianyuan family, perhaps not many people in the blessed land of West Buddha would recognize him. It was unlikely that he would be able to scare the other party into kneeling on the ground with his domineering aura. However, Tianyang did not want to do that. If that was the case, where would Heavenly Sun go to rob them if all the walking wishes ran away? In that case, do you know the titanium body tempering sacred technique? Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, the bald old monk, who was still frantically resisting the demonic flames in Tianyang's palm, was furious. How dare you casually mention the main temple's sacred technique? Don't think that you have subdued me now. The bald old monk roared, and golden flames burned in his eyes. Light of purification. In an instant, two beams of terrifying power shot toward Tianyang. Tianyang was also stunned, and then he smiled faintly. Two immortal divine flames burned in his eyes. The light of purification shot straight into Tianyang's eyes. Not only was Hai Yuanxiong scared out of her wits, but even Ling Yuhan was shocked. However, in the next moment, Tianyang smiled slightly. The immortal divine flames burst out from his inextinguishable eyes. Boom! In an instant, the bald old monk's entire body was ignited by Tianyang. In a short while, his body was completely destroyed. Sure enough, no matter how strong the people from the branch are, how could they know the boss's sacred technique? After checking the primordial spirit fragments, Tianyang curled his lips. There was no information at all. But, what are you doing here? Seeing that Tianyang killed the bald old monk in one move, Hai Yuanxiong's heart trembled. How strong was he? Oh, right. After collecting the bald old monk's willpower, Tianyang slapped his own head and turned to look at Hai Yuanxiong. Hand over your willpower. Also, hand over the treasure that you were fighting over earlier, Tianyang said with a smile. Hearing this, Hai Yuanxiong was speechless. As expected, this guy had to be an enemy. Chapter 1380. In the end, due to Tianyang's abuse of power, the proud Hai Yuanxiong had no choice but to hand over her willpower. It was just that everyone had just arrived. Other than killing demonic beasts like the giant flame python to collect the power of will, the rest depended on luck to see if there were any clusters of power of will appearing in their vicinity. It was the same for Hai Yuanxiong and the bald old monk. As a result, the willpower Tianyang looted was less than the flame python that Tianyang killed. Tisk! After absorbing the willpower, Tianyang clicked his tongue. Seeing this, Hai Yuanxiong felt an inexplicable anger rise in her heart. However, she forced her expression to remain normal and looked behind her. This is the treasure that I'm fighting over with him. Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. He did not expect Hai Yuanxiong to be willing to let him see. He had planned to run after snatching a wave. Following Hai Yuanxiong's gaze, Tianyong immediately saw a huge cracked mountain like the Meru Mountain that he was at previously. However, there was nothing like the flame python in this huge mountain. Instead, there was a mass of liquid that was sometimes pure gold and sometimes dark purple. This is blood. Tianyong raised his eyebrows and said, although this liquid released a tyrannical aura from time to time, there was no trace of the smell of blood. However, Tianyong still instinctively felt that this was blood, a drop of blood that merged two powerful forces. Blood. Hai Yuanxiong was stunned. I feel that this is a bit like this is blood, the blood of the primordial god fiend. At this moment, a faint voice came from the side. Hai Yuanxiong's body trembled instantly, and Tianyong's lips curled into a strange smile. Sure enough, this was the Meru domain. How could this guy be absent? Who are you? Hai Yuanxiong turned around instantly, her face full of fear as she looked at the young man who had silently appeared behind her. The young man was dressed in a white robe. His expression was calm, and his eyes were as deep as the stars. The aura on his body was also very mysterious, as if it was covered by a layer of void. Even Hai Yuanxiong could not see the slightest trace of the person in front of her. Young master of the Void Mountain, long time no see. How have you been? Tianyong turned around and chuckled. Upon hearing this, the Void Mountain's Shao Zun smiled. It has indeed been a long time. The Sumera domain was the most powerful secret territory in the Xintian macro world. Above it were the secret territories owned by the Saint Emperors. For example, the Dragon Demon Thousand Refining Pagoda and the altar of the Xinyuan family. It was impossible for the Void Mountain to not get involved in such a powerful mystic area. The Void Mountain's young master was naturally the best candidate. What? Hearing this, Hai Yuanxiong's pupils instantly contracted. Void Mountain, Shao Zun. The Void Mountain was a terrifying existence that even the Azure Sea Dragon tribe and the Demonic Dragon tribe didn't want to provoke. The ordinary-looking young man in front of him was actually the legendary successor of the most powerful force in the Xintian world, the young master of the Void Mountain. Exactly. The young master of the Void Mountain smiled, then looked at the drop of black gold blood that he called the primordial god fiend blood. This drop of blood has the power of the godly state and the aura of the demon race. Naturally, it's the god fiend blood. The young master of the Void Mountain said. Tianyong raised his eyebrows. As expected, the Void Mountain also knew about the godly state. However, the godly state and demonic power have fused together. As a result, this drop of blood is not so easy to use. The young master of the Void Mountain shook his head and sighed. If it was the godly blood, the young master of the Void Mountain would fight for it no matter what, even if he couldn't defeat Tianyong. However, this drop of blood had the aura of the demon race. If it was the aura of the dragon demons, it would work. However, the power of the demon race was no different from a fatal poison in front of the young master of the Void Mountain. The young master of the Void Mountain sighed when he saw a treasure but couldn't obtain it. It's fine. However, I don't think that it's such a coincidence that the young master of the Void Mountain met me. Tianyong said faintly. He didn't have much ill will towards the young master of the Void Mountain. However, the probability of him meeting Hai Yuanxiong was already very low. Now, he met the young master of the Void Mountain. Peerless geniuses will attract each other. The young master of the Void Mountain chuckled. At the same time, his eyes burned with the flames of battle. Furthermore, I also want to spar with you again, Daoist Tianyong. Last time, I was defeated because I wasn't skilled enough. This time, after returning to the Void Mountain, my strength has increased once again. I wonder how much you've improved, Daoist Tianyong. The young master of the Void Mountain stared at Tianyong and said firmly. As a martial arts fanatic, he naturally wanted to fight with an expert. In the Void Mountain, there was no need to spar with anyone who could beat him. They knew each other's abilities. Those who couldn't beat him were either heavenly great sages, half-holy emperors, or holy emperors. The young master of the Void Mountain could only be crushed in the face of such people. As for the ordinary younger generation, even if they were known as exceptional talents, there was still a huge gap between them and him. Tianyang was the only person of the younger generation he had seen who could fight with him and defeat him. Hai Yuanxiong was shocked when she saw the young master of the Void Mountain's battle intent. Most of the people in the ancestral Dragon God land were related to the Dragon Clan. Therefore, even Hai Yuanxiong was a little inferior to the strongest talents of the Xiantian Great World. The Xianyuan Saint was also far behind the young master of the Void Mountain. He was recognized as the #1 genius of the Xiantian Great World. As for the young master of the Void Mountain, it seemed that Tianyang had defeated him, but I refuse. Tianyang didn't even bat an eyelid as he flatly refused. What a joke. He was too lazy to fight when he had nothing to do. Now that Tianyang was busy robbing, wouldn't it be a waste of time to fight with the young master of the Void Mountain? Now, Tianyang's primordial spirit had sensed many robbery targets with a certain amount of power of will. Upon hearing this, the Void Mountain Shao Zun was confused. Since they were both geniuses, shouldn't the Heavenly Sun be full of battle intent and immediately start a battle with him that could even shatter Mount Meru? Why did he refuse so directly? I'm busy collecting power of will, so I'm too lazy to fight with you. If you want to fight with me, you have to hand over your power of will. After realizing that power of will was beneficial to the primordial spirit, Tianyang wanted to collect power of will enthusiastically. He wanted him to fight with the young master of the Void Mountain, which had no benefits. Only a fool would do that. Moreover, Tianyang also sensed that the young master of the Void Mountain in front of him had no power of will in his body, which was blocked by the power of the void. He had probably gone straight for him after reaching the Meru domain. This, as expected, the young master of the Void Mountain was stunned. At that moment, Tianyang reached out and took the black and gold god fiend blood. At that moment, a loud roar suddenly sounded in Tianyang's mind. Hurry up, get the god fiend blood. Chapter 1381. What? Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. His pupils shrank to the extreme. The immortal blood had been cultivated to the highest level. The immortal divine body did not display any powerful superpower when he cultivated the immortal eyes and immortal bones. Even the immortal eyes could only be seen by the flame of destruction. The immortal bones did not seem to have any superpower. However, when Tianyang cultivated the immortal blood, an ultimate superpower appeared in his mind. It was a terrifying skill that belonged to a deity or even surpassed a deity. Rebirth from a drop of blood. Once the immortal blood was cultivated to the ultimate realm, as long as the primordial spirit was not destroyed, he would be able to use the remaining vitality to rebuild his body. Previously, Tianyang had only relied on the immortal divine flame to increase his recovery ability. Although he would not be injured, it was only a strong recovery ability. If he cultivated the rebirth from a drop of blood, then Tianyang's immortal divine body would truly enter the immortal realm. This divine demon blood is so powerful. Tianyang muttered to himself as he looked at the divine demon blood in his hand. Rebirth from a drop of blood did not necessarily require fresh blood. Even a strand of hair, a piece of skin, a broken tooth, or even a small cell could restore vitality and become immortal. However, it was too difficult to achieve this. Firstly, in order to be reborn, the primordial spirit must not be destroyed. The first thing to do was to integrate the primordial spirit into every cell in the body. Tianyang's primordial spirit was in the sage realm. It was even more difficult for him to achieve this. Otherwise, what was the use of rebirth from a drop of blood if he did not have the primordial spirit? The divine demon blood might be able to increase his physical strength, but it would be difficult for him to cultivate the rebirth from a drop of blood. What do you know? The little golden girl was irritated. Do you know what kind of blood it is? It's the blood of the God Realm's illusion demon and the God Realm's mind spirit. You should know about Huanma, and Xinshin is a powerful deity who cultivates the way of the heart and becomes a deity. Although I don't know why these two fuse together. If you get it, you can easily fuse your primordial spirit with all the cells in your body, let alone fusing your primordial spirit with all the particles in your body. Tianyang was shocked when he heard that. Although he did not know what the Tao of the heart was, he could tell from its name that it was closely related to the primordial spirit. Furthermore, there was Illusion Fiend, an expert at manipulating essence souls. This god fiend blood, perhaps it could really help Tianyang step into the realm of blood rebirth. If that's the case, I might be able to fight that old dog Xian Yuan to the death, even without becoming a spirit great saint. Tianyang's lips curled into a brilliant smile. According to his plan, he had to wait until he became a spirit-grade great saint before he could fight Patriarch Xian Yuan without dying. However, if one cultivated to the level of rebirth from a drop of blood, then there was no need to consider whether one would die or not. One could just kill directly. Tianyang immediately turned around and looked at Hai Yuanxiong. Although it's a little too much, can you give me this drop of God-fiend blood? Tianyang asked solemnly. At the same time, a space bag appeared in his hand. There's Reiki, sacred weapons, and some martial arts techniques in here. If you're willing to exchange them, you can have them all. Hai Yuanxiong was stunned when she heard that. She looked at Tianyang. This was the first time she had seen Tianyang so serious. Even the battle with Xian Yuan, the Holy Sun, outside the Northern Frost Dragon King's remains was not as serious as this. No. Hai Yuanxiong shook her head with a strange expression. You saved my life. Although I'm confident that I can escape, you still saved my life. This drop of blood does contain demon blood. It's useless to give it to me. You want to give it to the dragon demons, right? Hai Yuanxiong smiled. That's right. If you want to enter the Sumeru domain, how can you not pay a price for the dragon demons? If that's the case, I'll give this god-fiend blood to you. Tianyang was stunned when he heard that. Then, a strange smile appeared on his face. Indeed, from the outside world's perspective, Tianyang's biggest backer was the True Dragon Sacred World. The True Dragon Sacred World was not qualified to enter the Sumeru domain. However, Tianyang came to the Sumeru domain with the Demon Dragon Crown Prince. Obviously, Tianyang had some kind of deal with the dragon demons. After all, not everyone would have thought that Tianyang could save the life of a sacred emperor. Those who could have thought of it were probably treated as idiots. However, Tianyang did not refute her. Instead, he kept the god-fiend blood in the Vientiane Sky ruins and let the vast expanse Saint Spirit take care of it. Engraving the primordial spirit into the body was an extremely dangerous task. Tianyang would not cultivate in an environment like the Sumeru domain where danger lurked everywhere. Thank you. If there's anything you need help with, I'll do it immediately. Tianyang cupped his fists. Hearing that, Hai Yuanxiong shook her head. I don't think there's such a chance. Forget it, I'm leaving. I haven't gotten any wish power yet. Then, Hai Yuanxiong flew away. Tianyang turned to look at Ling Yuhan. He flicked his finger, and a streak of wish power flew out. However, to Tianyang's surprise, Ling Yuhan frowned and hit his wish power back. Master, you're treating me like a child again. I'm a sacred realm cultivator now. If I can't snatch it, I can find it myself. Don't give me any wish power. If you give it to me, I'll fall out with you. I want to rely on myself until the end. Ling Yuhan said angrily. Tianyang was a little surprised when he heard that. Then he chuckled. All right then. Meanwhile, the Void Mountain's Xiao Zun was speechless. What? You still want to fight with me? Wait until the end of the top 10. Damn it. At this moment, an angry roar suddenly came from afar. Tianyang's expression changed slightly. This voice belonged to Hai Yuanxiong. At the same time, the familiar dragon power of the Sea Dragon clan erupted. Looks like we're in trouble. The Void Mountain's Xiao Zun smiled and flew in the direction of Hai Yuanxiong's voice in a flash. Tianyang and Ling Yuhan did not decline. They each used their movement techniques and came to Hai Yuanxiong's side. At this moment, two gusts of wind shot out from the side. They attacked Tianyang and Ling Yuhan respectively. Humph! Ling Yuhan immediately attacked. She released the power of the 9 underworlds and instantly froze the 2 attacks. At the same time, she raised her sword, and an icy sword chi shot out. This girl is a little interesting. As soon as he said that, the power of a human great supreme saint erupted and instantly shattered Ling Yuhan's sword chi attack. At this moment, Hai Yuanxiong held her trident and forcefully repelled the enemy in front of her. Then, she looked at Tianyang and the others. Run! The people of Pantheon Temple are here for revenge. Hai Yuanxiong roared. Hearing that, Tianyang smiled. A black light flashed in his hand, and the great void sword embryo appeared. Run? At this moment, 5 figures gradually appeared in the surroundings. The weakest was a human great supreme saint, and the strongest was close to the earth grade. Since you're here, don't even think about leaving. Chapter 1382. Since you're here, don't even think about leaving. Tianyang looked around at the 5 people from the Pantheon Temple and smiled faintly. There was 1 human great supreme saint, 2 peak human great supreme saints, 1 spiritual great supreme saint, and 1 half-step earthly great supreme saint. In the entire Xintian great cosmos, they were a rather powerful force. The Sage Emperor and other similar powers had sent out the younger generation. As for powers like the Pantheon Temple, they had sent out their full strength. If the Xinyuan family did not count Patriarch Xinyuan, they were at most on par with the Pantheon Temple. This showed how powerful the Pantheon Temple was. In addition to the bald, old monk who had died at Tianyang's hands, the Pantheon Temple had a total of 6 great sages. Don't even think about leaving. Hearing this, one of the peak human great supreme saints sneered. I think you're the one who won't be able to leave. You actually dared to kill senior brother Pu Ming of the Pantheon Temple in the Meru domain of the Buddhist sect. I think you're courting death. The peak human great supreme saint sneered. In his hand, the string of prayer beads formed by the 108 prayer beads bloomed with mysterious Sanskrit. A vast Buddhist power erupted from the body of the great saint at the peak of the human grade. It almost illuminated the surrounding sky with Buddhist light. The remaining 4 people also released their Buddhist power. Do you need help? The Void Mountains, Xiao Zun looked around and smiled faintly. Although the Void Mountains, Xiao Zun and Tianyang were rivals, it was not impossible for him to help now. There is a difference between an opponent and an enemy. No need. This is not the Jingang Temple. Tianyang pursed his lips. These trash who are not even earthly great supreme saints? Xinyuan Kongming alone could defeat 3 of them. Tianyang had already defeated Xinyuan Kongming a year ago. Yuan, I'll let you practice on that human great supreme saint. Tianyang casually pointed at a human great supreme saint and said. Hearing that, Ling Yuhan was stunned. At this moment, Tianyang's palm landed on Ling Yuhan's body. A powerful saint realm sword principle power entered Ling Yuhan's right hand. The power of this saint realm sword principle was so strong that even an earthly great saint would be injured if they were caught off guard. Although Ling Yuhan's current combat prowess was at most at the level of a saint lord, with the protection of this saint realm sword Dao power, not to mention a human grade great saint, even the strongest half-step earth grade wouldn't be able to harm Ling Yuhan in the slightest. Since Ling Yuhan wanted to become stronger as her master, Tianyang naturally had to fulfill his responsibilities. An intermediate saint? You want to fight me? Seeing this, the human great supreme saint was slightly taken aback, then revealed an incomparably sarcastic smile. Are you here to send this chick to her death? At this moment, Ling Yuhan's pupils constricted. She instantly seized this opportunity, and the power of the 9 nether erupted from her hand. She slashed out with her sword. In an instant, the human great supreme saint was frozen on the spot. Following this, Ling Yuhan's expression was solemn as she attacked again. Even if there were no more worries, Ling Yuhan would still do her best to fight with the strong to train herself. Tianyang didn't need to take care of Ling Yuhan for the time being. Naturally, he could take care of the remaining 4 great sages. Junior brother Pu Lu was captured by an intermediate saint stage expert. At this moment, someone exclaimed in surprise, looking at the human great supreme saint who had just broken out of the seal. Anyway, he's just an intermediate saint. Sooner or later, he'll die. Now, let's get rid of Hai Yuanxiong first. The leader of the four, a fat man who looked to be at least 150 kilograms, grinned hideously. In the next moment, his figure flashed, and a terrifying palm print blasted toward Tianyang. Although he was talking about Hai Yuanxiong, in fact, he was attacking Tianyang. Insidious. Seeing this, Hai Yuanxiong's expression changed drastically. She roared angrily, and the trident in her hand bloomed with brilliant blue light as she attacked the half-step Earth Grade Supreme, Saint fiercely. However, as soon as the trident stabbed out, it was sent flying by a terrifying gust of wind, and even Hai Yuanxiong was forced to take a few steps back. At that moment, the palm, which contained a terrifying Buddhist power, violently blasted towards Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang rubbed his temples. Not bad. In the next moment, Tianyang chuckled and stabbed out with a great void sword embryo in his hand. It was like stabbing cotton, light, and seemingly powerless. In an instant, the power of the Sage Realm sword principle bloomed. The palm print, which was as large as a mountain, exploded with a loud bang. A terrifying, penetrating force pierced through the palm print and headed for a half-step earthly great saint. What? Seeing this, the half-step Earth Great Supreme Saint was shocked. He hurriedly reacted, and the fat on his body shook like waves. Candlestick Purifying Lotus. The half-step Earth Great Supreme Saint roared. Rays of Buddhist power turned into brilliant flaming lotuses and charged toward Tianyang. The flaming lotuses carried an incomparably powerful destructive force. In just an instant, a firestorm burned in mid-air. It swept Tianyang into it. Phew! Seeing Tianyang's figure disappear, the half-step Earth Grade Supreme Saint heaved a sigh of relief, but he still felt a lingering fear in his heart. If he had acted a little later, not only would he not have been able to block the power of the Sage Realm Sword Principle, but he would also have been killed by that arrogant brat. Speaking of which, the Vajra Arhat asked us to look for a person called Tianyang. Where is he now? The half-step Earth Grade Supreme Saint wiped his sweat and muttered to himself. At this moment, the firestorm suddenly disappeared. If it's not the spiritual fire, don't make a fool of yourself. Tianyang stood in the air, looking down at the four people from Pantheon Temple, and chuckled. Hearing this, the half-step Earth Grade Supreme Saint's body froze instantly. As for the other three people, their faces changed drastically. Even Senior Brother Puji's candlestick pristine lotus. Oh no! Before he could finish his sentence, Tianyang's figure appeared in front of Senior Brother Puji, who weighed 150 kilograms. You're looking for Tianyang? Tianyang smiled. The blade of the great void sword embryo in his hand shone with a terrifying sharp light. Hearing this, Senior Brother Puji's fat body trembled. Looking at the tip of the great void sword embryo, his face was filled with fear. Yes. What a coincidence. Seeing this, Tianyang's lips curled into an incomparably warm smile, filled with boundless kindness. Seeing Tianyang's expression, Senior Brother Puji's spirits were lifted. This guy's smile is so kind. He must have a grudge against Tianyang. Senior, you're looking for Tianyang too? I knew that Tianyang wouldn't be a good person if he dared to provoke the Vajra Arhat. Senior, if you want to deal with Tianyang, please don't kill me. I, Puji, am the best at gathering intelligence. Who do you think I am? If I die, I die. Senior, please don't mind me. Puji hurriedly said. Hearing this, Tianyang's smile became even brighter. The Void Mountains, Shao Zun, and Hai Yuanxiong turned their heads away, unable to bear to look. But, Senior Brother Puji was stunned. I am Tianyang. Tianyang smiled slightly, and the true flames of destruction rose. Senior Brother Puji's pupils constricted as he stared at Tianyang. Chapter 1383. The terrifying true flames of destruction instantly engulfed everyone in the Pantheon Temple, except for Pu Lu, who was fighting Ling Yuhan. The corners of Tianyang's mouth had a slight smile. He was not a soft-hearted person. If you want to kill, you must be prepared to be killed. Senior Pu Ming is dead, even Senior Pu Ji and the others. As for Pu Yu, who is currently engaged in a fierce battle with Ling Yuhan, His face was filled with terror as he looked at the balls of true flames of destruction burning around that person. Even though they were thousands of meters apart, the terrifying power of destruction from above still made him extremely terrified. The true flames of destruction was originally half a step into the 8th level. After absorbing the Qingming Xian fire, it became an 8th level sacred flame. Among the 8th level sacred flames, it was not weak. Pulu was only a great saint. In front of the true flames of destruction controlled by Tianyang, he would not even last for a second. After all, snap! Tianyang snapped his fingers and the true flames of destruction were extinguished. Puji and the others had already turned into ashes, drifting away with the wind, never to be seen again. Even Puji and the others who were stronger than them could only last for 5 seconds. Pulu, who had been cultivating in the Pantheon Temple. Even when he went out to train, he relied on the reputation of the Pantheon Temple to enjoy himself. When had he ever seen such a situation? Senior Puji and the others were killed in an instant. Pulu trembled and let Ling Yuhan's sword slash on his body. He turned around and wanted to escape. "Do you think you can run away?" Tianyang smiled and said. Hearing this, Pulu, who was about to escape, suddenly stopped, his whole body trembling. Indeed, he cannot run away. But I'm in a good mood now. I'll give you a chance to escape from my hands. Tianyang, on the other hand, had a faint smile on his face as he drifted to a spot 30 meters in front of Pulu. Puli's body trembled when he heard this. Since he was a heavenly son, then he was with the demonic dragon clan. South Devil's people, the blessed lands of the West, had always looked down on the Southern Devil Ghost region, and the Southern Devil Ghost region was portrayed as a terrifying realm that went back on its word and ate people without spitting out the bones. Therefore, Pulu did not believe Tianyang's words at all. However, as of now, it was not up to him to believe it or not. Although the blessed lands of the West description of the Southern Ghost realm wasn't too far off, what opportunity? Pulu said in a trembling voice. Tianyang narrowed his eyes and chuckled. "Fight against my disciple. If you win, I will let you go. Of course, if you lose, you won't be able to escape death." Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, Pulu was stunned. With his disciple, Hai Yuanxiong definitely wasn't. That mysterious and powerful young man who hadn't made a move yet shouldn't be either. In other words, the disciple of the Tianyang was the stunning woman who had fought with him before. Immediately, Pu Li's heart burned with the flames of hope. Ling Yuhan, he had defeated him so easily before. Of course, if you put my disciple's life in danger, even if I can save her, I will cut you into pieces. Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, Pu Li's body trembled. Tianyang's warm and sunny smile became like the smile of a devil in Pu Li's eyes. All right, but he had no other choice. All right, Yuhan, fight well. If you lose, I won't let you go. Tianyang turned around and flew into the distance, smiling at Ling Yuhan. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan was stunned. Then, she seemed to have thought of something. Her face turned red, and she lowered her head. Yes. In the next moment, Ling Yuhan was extremely serious. She activated the 9 Netherfrost formula and fought with Pu Lu. Ling Yuhan was not without talent. On the contrary, she had the 9 Nether Saint body and the 9-tailed lunar fox. Any one of these two could defeat Tianyang, who had naturally terminated meridians. However, after Ling Yuhan had entered the mysterious sky great world, she had relied on her own crude cultivation method to step into the Wuzun realm. This had caused Ling Yuhan's foundation to be extremely unstable. Even with the help of the 9 Netherfrost formula, it had only improved a little. Then, for some unknown reason, she had broken through to the Saint realm. It was extremely difficult for her talent to not let her strength fall below her realm. Not to mention, like Tianyang, she could beat someone of a higher realm. Therefore, Ling Yuhan needed actual combat to activate the 9 Netherfrost formula. Only then could she repair her foundation and fully unleash her talent. Just as Ling Yuhan and Pu Lu were fighting fiercely, Tianyang suddenly raised his eyebrows and looked into the distance. In the distance, Ling Yuhan was also fighting more and more strenuously. She kept slashing with the saint artifact, longsword in her hand, but she barely managed to hit Pu Lu. After all, although Pu Lu was the most ordinary great saint of the human grade, he was still a great saint. Ling Yuhan's strength was only at the level of an ordinary great saint. She was able to hold on for so long because she had been constantly repairing her foundation and strengthening her strength during the battle. Great! Seeing this, Pu Lu was overjoyed. He blasted out a heavy seal. The power of the saint stage, sword principle, in Ling Yuhan's body instantly burst out and shredded the seal. However, Ling Yuhan was also sent flying countless miles away. She was no longer able to fight. As expected, Ling Yuhan was defeated. "I'm sorry, Master. I've disappointed you." After stabilizing her body in midair, Ling Yuhan's face fell. Originally, she thought that with her great talent, it would not be too much of a problem for her to defeat an ordinary great saint of the human grade. However, she had underestimated the strength of a great saint. It was almost impossible for a great saint to defeat a great saint, unless it was a demon like Tianyang. "It's all right. Go back and ask the Heavens Expanse Saint Spirit for advice. You have the talent now, but your foundation is too weak." Tianyang patted Ling Yuhan's head and smiled. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan nodded and returned to the Vientiane sky ruins. At this time, Pu Lu looked at Tianyang eagerly. "Tianyang, I've already defeated your disciple. Now, is that enough?" At this moment, Pu Li's hands were frozen by the power of the 9 underworlds. Even if it was Ling Yuhan, it would not be easy for him to defeat her. However, Pu Li did not have the time to care about this. He only wanted to escape. The further he ran, the better. "All right, Tianyang, I'm a man of my word." Tianyang nodded, his lips curling into a smile. "I'll let you go." "Ha ha ha." Hearing this, Pu Li laughed wildly as if he had just survived a disaster. He turned around and wanted to leave. However, a wave blocked Pu Li's way. "However, I didn't let you go." Hai Yuanxiong looked at Pu Li coldly. "WH at." Hearing this, Pu Li's face changed. He looked at Tianyang and said, "Didn't you say? You went back on your words." "Die." Hai Yuanxiong snorted and attacked with her trident. "Stop." At this time, a loud roar came from afar. Then, a terrifying Buddhist power exploded. "Just attack." Tianyang smiled and sent a message. At the same time, the great void sword embryo slashed out. The Buddhist power exploded instantly. Hai Yuanxiong's trident also penetrated Pu Li's head. Boom! At this time, another Buddhist power exploded. Chapter 1384. Half-Step Heavenly Great Saint. Tianyang's expression changed. Hai Yuanxiong's expression changed drastically. As for Void Mountain Xiao Zun, his expression changed slightly. The three of them raised their heads at the same time and looked in the direction of the blast. Half-Step Heavenly Great Saint. Even the Vajra Arhut is only at the peak of the Earth Great Saint. Tianyang chuckled and took a step forward to stand in front of Hai Yuanxiong. With a wave of his hand, the beam of Buddhist light was forcefully sent flying. The Buddhist light beam, which was supposed to go straight for the heavenly sun and kill Hai Yuanxiong, was forcibly changed direction by the heavenly sun. Instead, it went straight for the Meru Mountain. However, Mount Meru wasn't an ordinary mountain. It only lost a portion of its body to the full force attack of a half-step heavenly great saint. I didn't pay attention to the blissful sect, but the blissful sect's blissful sky cultivates such pure Buddhist power. I can even make Hai Yuanxiong eat shit. So, Bodhisattva, I don't think I've offended you. Tianyang smiled. The source of the Buddhist power, the half-step heavenly great saint, Bodhisattva, appeared before the three of them. Ridiculous. Bodhisattva's expression was cold. He looked at the blood on Hai Yuanxiong's trident, and his face was overflowing with anger. "You lot killed indiscriminately in the Meru domain, a pure land of Buddhism. How dare you ask me if you've offended me?" Bodhisattva snarled. Tianyang raised an eyebrow and looked at Bodhisattva. How could there be such an idiot in the Xintian great world? Bodhisattva's calm face was filled with anger. It didn't seem fake at all. In other words, Bodhisattva was really angry at Tianyang's actions. So, what does it have to do with you? Tianyang sneered. Bodhisattva's anger was completely ignited. You're courting death. The terrifying Buddhist power of a half-step heavenly great saint erupted. Bodhisattva struck with his palm, aiming for Tianyang. I won't kill you, but you won't have an easy time either. Bodhisattva roared. His Buddhist power turned into chains and shot toward Tianyang. Tianyang's Bodhisattva was Bodhisattva's eyes. I'll speak. Bodhisattva is the great saint Bodhisattva. Bodhisattva is great saint Bodhisattva. Great saint Bodhisattva. How Bodhisattvas? Was he heavenly great heaves? Heavenly heavens is heaven saint. He could fight a heavenly great saint now. If he used his martial soul's heaven-devouring secret skill, which was at the pinnacle of the saint grade, he could rival a heavenly great saint. In Tianyang's eyes, none of the Shintian great world's geniuses were worthy of his attention. Bodhisattva was no exception. Looks like you're quite strong. Bodhisattva didn't know this. His face darkened and his body flashed. Boom, boom, boom. Instantly, the space around Bodhi exploded as he took a huge step forward. At the same time, he struck out with a ferocious and domineering palm. It came from Tianyang's back. Tianyang pursed his lips. He reached out and grabbed Bodhisattva's hand with his right hand at an almost distorted angle. At the same time, he flung Bodhisattva away. Bodhisattva was flung away. However, Bodhisattva kicked off the space with both feet and charged forward again. Tianyang couldn't be bothered to fight Bodhisattva. He had sensed that a few people with decent willpower were planning to rob someone. What if Bodhisattva ran away if he fought him? Tianyang stood with his hands behind his back, allowing Bodhisattva to strike again and again as he retreated. Strangely, Bodhisattva felt that this distance was enough to hit Tianyang. However, every time he struck, his attacks would always be a little short. However, from a visual point of view, the heavenly sun was 3 feet in front of him. The Tao space. Bodhisattva's pupil shrank. This guy could fold space. No wonder his attacks never hit Tianyang. He had fallen into Tianyang's spatial trap without knowing when. You only understand now. Tianyang smiled. Bodhisattva's pupil shrank. This was his chance. Buddhist energy exploded from his body. It was as if a Buddha had descended. Buddha's palm. Boom. This palm collided with Tianyang's fist. The immortal divine body, the 9-tempered dragon body, and the Vajra body refining saint technique were stacked together. In an instant, the strength of his physical body swelled to an extremely terrifying level. He was not at a disadvantage when he clashed with the Buddha's palm. How can he be so strong? Bodhisattva's expression changed. Tianyang was just a saint. Where did he get the true yuan and physical strength to clash with his Buddha's palm? Tianyang took advantage of Bodhisattva's shock to appear behind him and grab him. What? Bodhisattva finally reacted. However, he was already in Tianyang's grasp. That's not the way to underestimate your opponent. Why do I feel like you're looking down on me? Tianyang gripped Bodhisattva's throat with his left hand and said helplessly, fighting with Bodhisattva was much more boring than fighting with that unknown earthly great saint. Bodhisattva's attacks were methodical and did not have any killing intent. It would be strange if Bodhisattva could defeat him. Bodhisattva's face turned red. His Buddhist energy exploded as he tried to send Tianyang flying. However, the true yuan on Tianyang's body strangely suppressed his Buddhist power completely. It was as if Bodhisattva's Buddhist energy was naturally weaker than Tianyang's true yuan. Bodhisattva was stunned. Tianyang spoke again. However, I'm serious about this. I have no enmity with you. Why are you looking for trouble with me? Tianyang said. Bodhisattva's face was filled with rage. How dare you say that? You killed Pantheon Temple's Pu. You killed someone in Sumera domain. Of course, I have to punish you. Tianyang was speechless. Bodhisattva snorted coldly. The patriarch of Bodhi sect once said that the body is a Bodhi tree and the heart is like a mirror. You have to polish yourself constantly to avoid dust. As disciples of Buddhism, not only do we have to polish ourselves, but we also have to protect the heart of the world. If you understand, then surrender and I won't kill you, Bodhisattva said. Bodhi said he actually wanted to use Buddhist principles to purify the heavenly sun. Tianyang sneered when he heard that. Trying to reason with him? Who could win against a person who had died twice? Chapter 1385. There is no Bodhi tree, nor is there a mirror. There is nothing. So where does dust come from? Tianyang's tone was flat. Bodhi sneered in disdain. He was the strongest disciple of the Bodhi sect. He was also the person who had the deepest understanding of Buddhism in the history of the Bodhi sect. Tianyang didn't cultivate Buddhism at all. Did he think he could convince him with just a few words? In your dreams. The first sentence was said by the sixth-generation patriarch of the Bodhi sect, Patriarch Shinshio. How can a random sentence of yours win against my sixth-generation patriarch's supreme Buddhist logic? Bodhi was stunned. Before this, he didn't care about Tianyang's words at all. He didn't even listen. But now that he heard it, these short words were like a huge bell, fiercely striking his heart. There is nothing, so where does dust come from? There is nothing? Instantly, Bodhi froze on the spot. Cracks began to appear on the sturdy Buddhist Tao that he had cultivated alone for nearly 100,000 years. This world has its own rules. Everything that happens is the natural order of the world. If you only cultivate your own state of mind, I wouldn't bother talking to you. But if you want to force the so-called Buddhism in your heart onto this world, then what does it make you? Who goes against the natural order of the world? Tianyang said flatly. Only now did he put away his usual wild and unrestrained nature. He had the heart of someone who had experienced life and death. This is also the natural order of the world. That's right. Everything you do is also the natural order of the world because you are also in this world. But what do you want to do? Wipe away dust from time to time? There is no limit to the world. There is no such thing as a Bodhi tree or a mirror. You can create the appearance of the world for yourself. Make the world what you want it to be, and then give it the name of wiping away dust. But you don't know that justice is determined by man. If there is nothing, then what are you wiping away? The air? Tianyang said calmly. Bodhisattva trembled when he heard this. His resolute eyes were now filled with confusion. Tianyang was taken aback when he saw this. Had this guy's Tao heart collapsed because of his words? However, in the next second, Bodhi clenched his teeth so hard that his lips bled. Clarity returned to his eyes. Then, a half-step heavenly great saint-level Buddhist power erupted. He directly shook Tianyang away, and at the same time his figure flashed out. It's just some crooked ways. You want to shake my Tao heart? Bodhisattva Bodhi roared. Tianyang shrugged. As expected, anyone who could cultivate to a half-step heavenly great saint must have a firm Tao heart. It wasn't something that could be shaken by a few words. I'll let you off this time. If there's a next time, you won't be safe even if you have the protection of the Void Mountain Shaozun. Bodhisattva roared angrily. Then, he used a Buddhist movement technique and left quickly. That's why a Tao heart built on T Buddhist principles and man-made things is the most unstable. Tianyang shrugged. What's the use of believing in heaven and earth? In the end, you still have to rely on yourself to cultivate. Tianyang pursed his lips. Then, he turned around and released the power of his primordial spirit. Endless power of wish was like the bright moon in the dark night. It was extremely dazzling and eye-catching. Let's go. Let's rob them. Tianyang let Ling Yuhan out. He smiled and attacked those people. Hai Yuanxiong and the Void Mountain's Shaozun stayed where they were. They watched Tianyang and Ling Yuhan leave silently. If you don't believe in heaven and earth, do you believe in yourself? The Void Mountains, Shao Zun smiled. It seems that this guy's Dao heart is almost indestructible. Then, the Void Mountains, Shao Zun floated away. Hai Yuanxiong lowered her head and pondered. You're Tianyang. A great saint of human integrity looked in horror at Tianyang and Ling Yuhan, who had suddenly appeared in front of him. Tianyang. He was a powerful person who could fight with the Vajra Arhat. Don't worry. I'm just here to steal your power of wish. Tianyang said with a smile. Yuhan, go. If you win, I'll give it all to you. If you lose, you can give me half of that great saint of human integrity. Tianyang said with a smile. Hearing that, the great saint of human integrity was stunned. He looked at Ling Yuhan. Are you serious? Of course. Don't tell me you want to learn from me, like the Vajra Arhat? All right then. Instantly, the great saint of human integrity was filled with endless motivation. He fought fiercely with Ling Yuhan. Although Ling Yuhan's strength had improved a lot after the battle with Pulu, Ling Yuhan's strength was still not at the level of a great saint of human integrity. After dozens of rounds, Ling Yuhan was defeated. Tianyang only took half of the power of wish and went on to find his next target. The power of wish could nourish the primordial spirit and purify the impurities in the primordial spirit, making it stronger. However, once there was too much of it, the effect would decrease. Therefore, Tianyang did not intend to take the power of wish. Instead, he wanted to use this opportunity to make Ling Yuhan stronger quickly. However, those who had entered the Sumeru domain were not just the hundreds of great saints that Tianyang had seen when he first arrived, including those who came later and did not appear at the beginning. There were almost 800 great saints in the entire Sumeru domain. Among them, at least 500 were great saints of human integrity. There were only about 1,000 great saints in the entire Xintian Great World. Nearly 80% of them were here. Wasn't it easy for Ling Yuhan to find an opponent? However, for some of the great saints of human integrity that he did not know, Tianyang only let Ling Yuhan fight first. If she won, she would take the power of wish. If she lost, he would take half of it. As for some of his enemies and Buddhists, Tianyang did not hold back. No matter if they were human, spiritual, or earth integrity, he would take them all. If they dared to resist, he would kill them all, especially those from the Jingang Temple. Tianyang would interrogate them whenever he met them. If they did not cooperate, he would immediately kill them. Who asked your boss to be so stupid? Because Tianyang's primordial spirit had almost destroyed everyone present. Tianyang's sensing range was also unique. Even if 800 great saints were hidden in the 108,000 Sumer Mountains, Tianyang could still grab them and rob them. However, a few days later, Tianyang's power of wish had reached a terrifying level. Not only did it expel all the impurities in Tianyang's primordial spirit, but it also purified his primordial spirit. There's also a faint tendency to transcend the primordial spirit and purify the physical body. Tianyang's entire person had a sense of holiness. As for Ling Yuhan's strength, it had also become stronger and stronger with each failure. The first few dozen opponents were all defeated after a few dozen or a few hundred rounds. But when it came to the 128th opponent, Ling Yuhan finally defeated the first great saint of the human grade. Subsequently, more and more great saints of human integrity were defeated. Her talent was completely stimulated. Her cultivation had even broken through to the advanced saint realm. These were all for Tianyang and his disciple, and for the people of the entire Sumeru domain. Chapter 1386. You're from the Diamond Temple. Why are you looking for me instead of Tianyang? Xin Yuanyun snorted coldly as she stared coldly at the Vajra Arhat and the others who had suddenly blocked her way with a thin sword in her hand. The Xin Yuan physique was secretly activated, and the shadow beneath her feet grew thicker. She couldn't defeat the Diamond Arhat and the others, but it was impossible for the Diamond Arhat to keep her here. Even Xin Yuan Kongming would have a hard time finding out about the evading shadow technique. Tianyang is just a thief who cultivated the strongest sacred technique of our Vajra temple from who knows where. It doesn't matter if we find him or not, or when we find him. The diamond Arhut narrowed his eyes and smiled faintly. On the other hand, I'm very interested in what you've obtained from Mount Meru. Among the 108,000 Sumeru mountains, there were many Sumeru temple masters or treasures that the Sumeru temple had obtained from their enemies. Some of these treasures might be ordinary, but some were extremely powerful. Even the strongest genius of a major faction like the Diamond Arhut couldn't help but be tempted. The divine demon blood was a little special, but Yin Xinyuan had obtained a sacred Buddhist treasure from Mount Meru. I remember that the Diamond Temple should have a portion of the infinite yin-yang energy technique as well. Moreover, the Diamond Temple doesn't cultivate the infinite yin-yang energy technique. Xinyuan Yin sneered. Inside this Mount Meru, there was a holy emperor-level Buddhist cultivation technique. Yin Xinyuan had noticed that the yin chapter of the infinite yin-yang energy technique was extremely suitable for her, which was why she had taken it out of Mount Meru. She didn't expect the Diamond Arhut to suddenly appear in front of her with a group of people from the Diamond Temple after she had passed the test of Mount Meru and obtained the infinite yin-yang energy technique. Although the Diamond Temple cultivates the Diamond Demon Suppression Art, it also contains a portion of the infinite yin-yang energy technique. Since you're not a Buddhist, and the Diamond Temple has a portion of the infinite yin-yang energy technique, why don't you give it to us? The Vajra Arhut smiled. Yin Xuanyuan's face turned cold. Moreover, I happen to have a cultivator who cultivates the boundless yang chapter of the boundless yin-yang harmony technique. Therefore, I would like to give you a piece of advice. The Vajra Arhut smiled faintly. A terrifying thunderbolt Buddhist seal shot towards Yin Xinyuan. I advise you to surrender obediently. Despicable. Seeing this, Xinyuan Yin sneered. Her figure instantly disappeared and merged into the shadows. The slender sword in his hand emitted a terrifying mystical yin force before it disappeared. The Vajra Arhut sneered when he collided with the thunderbolt Buddhist seal. The mysterious beauty yin body is indeed extraordinary. However, do you really think you can escape from the hands of the Diamond Temple with just this? The Buddha power of a peak earthly great saint erupted in an instant. Heavenly thunder, demon slayer. Boom! Countless powerful and mysterious Sanskrit characters gathered in midair, and a terrifying Buddhist power of thunder burst out instantly. They ruthlessly bombarded the area in all directions. Although the evading shadow technique blended into the shadows, it was still within the space. As long as every inch of space-time was attacked, the evading shadow technique would naturally be useless. Damn it! In an instant, Xinyuan Yun, who had just teleported 300 meters away, was struck by a bolt of lightning and was forcefully forced out. At this moment, a terrifying yang energy, like a cannonball, fiercely shot towards Xinyuan Yun. Boundless yang technique. Seeing this, Yin Xuanyuan's face darkened. He released his mystical yin force and slashed out with his sword, breaking the powerful yang force. However, at this moment, the three people from the Diamond Temple who had not made a move all this time suddenly appeared behind Yin Xinyuan. Suppress. Mysterious and complicated Sanskrit characters gathered, and, at the same time, there seemed to be a Buddha chanting. Like a great bell, it struck Yin Xuanyuan's heart. Yin Xinyuan was only an advanced saint, and the power of her primordial spirit was not strong. She was stunned by the Buddha's voice for a moment. By the time she reacted, the complicated runes had turned into a huge cage, trapping Yin Xinyuan within. At the same time, all the shadows were expelled, and Yin Xinyuan did not even have the chance to use the evading shadow technique to escape. Does one of the three major Buddhist sects of the blessed lands of the West only know how to bully others with numbers? Yin Xinyuan gritted her teeth and said coldly. The Diamond Arhut laughed when he heard this. Do you think I'm as stubborn as Bodhisattva? Do you think I'd listen to you? I was only planning to steal your infinite yin-yang technique, but now that I think about it, my third junior brother's infinite yin-yang technique also requires pure yin energy for dual cultivation. You're quite talented yourself. Why don't you join my Buddhist sect and become my third junior brother's cauldron? The Diamond Arhut laughed maniacally. You're a follower of Tianyang. aren't you? I'd like to see how Tianyang will react when he finds out that his follower has become my third junior brother's cauldron. Just thinking about it makes me feel good. The battle with Tianyang in the Sumeru domain was the first time the Diamond Arhut had suffered a crushing defeat in the outside world. Naturally, the Diamond Arhut held a grudge against Tianyang. Now that he had the chance to humiliate him, how could he pass it up? What's the difference between you and the blissful sect? Yin Xinyuan growled, glaring at the Diamond Arhut as if he wanted to eat him alive. In the outside world, the Diamond Temple and the Bodhi sect were known as the two righteous Buddhist sections. However, the Diamond Arhut's actions were no different from the infamous blissful sect. If you say that, the blissful sect will not be happy. We are very particular about whether the woman is willing or not. Suddenly, a man appeared in front of them, standing upside down. His face was handsome, masculine, and feminine. These two different temperaments fused into one person. There was a sinister smile on his face. Although he was wearing a kasaya, he looked like a prince from the secular world. He had a mesmerizing charm. Joyous Sky, this has nothing to do with you. The Diamond Arhut's expression darkened when he saw the man. Of course it has nothing to do with me. Joyous Sky stepped on the ground and walked toward the Diamond Arhut. I just wanted to say something. The Sky Suppression Tower is coming out. What? The Sky Suppression Tower? The Diamond Arhut's expression changed. But before that, I have to deal with this Joyous Sky of the blissful sect, the Diamond Arhut of the Diamond Temple. The two most powerful Buddhist prodigies of the blessed land of the West are all here. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the space that was sealed by the Diamond Arhut. Tianyang's sinister laughter could be heard from the crack. If I kill all of you at once, Evil Sky Dragon Emperor, that old man, will be very happy. In the next moment, Tianyang and Ling Yuhan walked out of the crack in space. Tianyang waved his hand. The surrounding Sanskrit was instantly reduced to ashes. The three Vajra Temple disciples who had been maintaining the cage were also sent flying by Sky Sun's wave. The three of them spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time. Seeing this, the Vajra Arhut was stunned as well. Then his eyes were filled with rage. Chapter 1387. Blissful Sect, Blissful Sky. Vajra Temple, Vajra Arhut. These two were probably the only earthly great saints in the entire Sumeru domain. I didn't expect to bump into you so quickly, Tianyang said as he looked at the two people in front of him with a playful smile. He casually swung the great void sword embryo in his hand. It shone with a chilling light, causing the two to turn serious. On the other hand, the Diamond Arhut's face was filled with resentment and hatred. He would never forget the humiliation Tianyang had inflicted on him before the opening of the Sumeru domain. Even though the wound had healed by the time he entered the Sumeru domain, the Vajra Arhut's neck still ached when he saw Tianyang. This meant that his life had been completely controlled by someone else, and he had only survived because of Tianyang's charity. Die! The Vajra Arhut roared, unleashing the Vajra Temple's strongest body-tempering sacred technique, the Vajra Demon subduing art. Surging Buddhist energy gushed out like a raging torrent. Bolts of lightning were like dragons as they ruthlessly attacked the heavenly sun. Vajra Demon subduing art. This move again? Tianyang pursed his lips and smirked. You lost me the first time you used it, and now you're using it again? In the next instant, the great void sword embryo in Tianyang's hand flashed. Tianyang had no intention of sparing the Vajra Arhut's life. Now, Yin Xinyuan was forced to use the space token Tianyang had given him. The Vajra Arhut and Blissful Sky must have forced Yin Xinyuan into a corner. At most, he would capture the Vajra Arhut's soul and let the Dragon Emperor break the seal in the Vajra Arhut's primordial spirit. It would only take a little more effort. How dare the Vajra Arhut attack his companion? You're courting death. The power of the Saint Realm Sword Dao exploded. This was the first time Tianyang had used his full strength after the Dragon Demon 1000 refining pagoda. Sword breaking 9 barons. Boom! In an instant, the terrifyingly powerful lightning dragon exploded. Even the huge Buddhist power was shattered as Tianyang appeared in front of the Vajra Arhat. He thrust out his sword, one sword flying immortal. Damn it, how is this possible? Seeing this, the Vajra Arhat's expression changed drastically. He unleashed all of his Buddhist energy and pushed the Vajra body, refining sacred technique to the extreme. He then punched out. However, although the Vajra Arhat's Vajravada refining sacred technique was powerful, it was like tofu in front of the Great Void sword embryo, which was a pinnacle sacred weapon. Moreover, this Great Void sword embryo was also supported by Tianyang's Sage Realm Sword principle, which had faintly touched the origin. Hiss! The Vajra Arhat's fist was pierced by the sword, and blood splattered everywhere. Tianyang's face was cold as he stepped out with the vast expanse 9 transformations. In a flash, he appeared behind the Vajra Arhat. 10,000 mammoths, extermination. In an instant, the 9 Saint Daos and the Space Dao, which was also the 10 Saint Daos, were fully unleashed. Joyous Sky's expression changed drastically, and the Vajra Arhat roared. Monstrous Buddhist energy burst out. However, in front of Tianyang's 10,000 mammoths annihilation, it was unbelievably weak. In an instant, it was broken, and it was about to tear the Vajra Arhat's body apart. At this moment, a surge of terrifying Buddhist energy burst out from the Vajra Arhat's body. Tianyang's expression changed. He snorted and retreated 10 miles in a flash. The Buddhist energy burst out at the same time. It turned into a huge Dharma body, looked at Tianyang, and punched out. Did the Vajra Temple's Sage Emperor seal the trump card in your body? Tianyang looked at the huge Dharma body and snorted. Then, he made a prompt decision. In a flash, he escaped into the space. He wasn't stupid. If it was the power of a half-saint emperor, Tianyang might have fought it head-on to compare the difference between him and Patriarch Xinyuan. However, if it was the power of a sage emperor, Tianyang would be courting death if he fought it head-on. However, the power of a sage emperor broke through the space and attacked Tianyang. Space-time blink. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled calmly. The space-time Dao and the chaos origin were activated. As the space-time Dao grew stronger, the space-time Dao grew stronger as well. At this moment, the space-time blink released could even freeze the power of a sage emperor. Tianyang was no longer the young saint who had just broken through to the saint realm. When he used the space-time blink, he couldn't even affect Patriarch Xuanyuan's space-time blink. Now, even if Patriarch Xinyuan was standing in front of him, he wouldn't be able to break free easily. Although a sage emperor was powerful, the power in front of him was only a small part of the sage emperor's power. Even Joyous Sky and Vajra Arhat didn't notice the stagnation of the space-time. By the time they reacted, the power of a sage emperor had already hit the air and shattered the indestructible Mount Meru. Of course, he had left behind a little foundation. Otherwise, the 108,000 Summer Mountains would have become 107,999 Summer Mountains. He dodged the power of a sage emperor. Seeing this, Vajra Arhat was completely stunned. To be able to force him to use the power of the Vajra Temple's sage emperor, he had already lost in his heart. However, the Vajra Arhat also believed that the Holy Emperor's power could easily kill the Heavenly Sun. In the end, he didn't expect Tianyang to use some unknown method to dodge the power of a sage emperor. You didn't expect this, did you? Tianyang smiled and used the 6th transformation of the heavens expanse 9 transformations to appear beside Vajra Arhat. Instantly, he slashed out with his sword. Boom! However, this time, it felt different from when Tianyang slashed the neck. The sound was different as well. Instead, it felt like he had slashed at some powerful defensive mystique. Bodhi sex, Bodhi heart protection. Seeing this, Tianyang sneered. Bodhi Bodhisattva, you're really a busybody. That's right. The person who attacked was Bodhi Bodhisattva, whom Tianyang had forced to retreat with a single sentence. However, before Bodhi Bodhisattva could say anything, Tianyang's figure suddenly disappeared. He appeared in front of Joyous Sky. BBB brother, don't kill me. I didn't do anything. Joyous Sky was scared out of his wits when he saw the dark and chilling blade in front of him. He immediately prostrated himself on the ground and begged. The strangest thing was that Joyous Sky had been standing upside down since the beginning. Now that he was kneeling upside down. Tianyang's head was facing Joyous Sky's head. Master, he really didn't do anything. At this moment, Yun Xuanyuan's voice could be heard. Tianyang snorted coldly and disappeared in a flash. Tianyang had offended 2 out of the 3 major Buddhist sects in the blessed lands of the West. If possible, he didn't want to offend the blissful sect. Of course, Tianyang wouldn't mind if he really offended them. However, Joyous Sky, Vajra Arhat, and Bodhi Bodhisattva, who attacked just now, all 3 of them were present. Looking at Bodhi Bodhisattva, who slowly appeared, Tianyang smiled and said, I don't know. Which one of you is here? Tell me. What are the 3 of you gathered here for? Chapter 1388. Which one of you can tell me? What are you 3 bodhisattvas doing here? Tianyang smiled faintly, although he was standing alone in his original spot. Ling Yuhan and Xin Yuanyun behind him were completely negligible in the eyes of people at the level of the Vajra Arhat. However, Tianyang alone was enough to overpower the 3 Arhats. He had overpowered them. He had overpowered the 3 Arhats alone. What does this being here have to do with you, an outsider? Bodhisattva Bodhi said coldly. Beside him, Vajra Arhat was still gasping for air. His face was still filled with fear. After all, he had almost lost his life to Tianyang. Looking at Tianyang's merciless gaze, he was afraid that Tianyang did not care whether he still had the Vajra physique tempering saint technique. He only wanted to kill him. He did not know that Tianyang was on good terms with the Dragon Emperor. Even if he could not solve it himself, he could ask the Dragon Emperor for help. Of course, if it was Ling Yuhan, Tianyang would have killed her even if he did not have the Dragon Emperor as a backup. The Vajra Arhat is here to steal my boundless yin-yang harmony art, Yin Xinyuan said. Tianyang was stunned. Boundless yin-yang harmony art? Joyous Sky and Bodhi's expressions changed when they heard that. You actually obtained the boundless yin-yang harmony art in the Sumeru domain. This is the Buddhist. Bodhi said subconsciously. Bodhisattva Bodhi said subconsciously. However, Tianyang's sword once again emitted rays of cold light. If you fart one more time, I won't mind fighting the 3 of you alone. Although Tianyang had used his full strength earlier, it was only under normal circumstances. The sky-devouring secret technique, which was unleashed by the peak saint-grade heavenly sword martial soul, did not push Tianyang's cultivation to the human-grade great saint or even the spiritual-grade great saint. Tianyang could die immediately. Even if he was facing a great sage, Tianyang was confident that he could take down all 3 of them. All right, the treasures obtained in the Sumeru domain can only be obtained by fate. I won't haggle over this. Looking at Tianyang's overflowing killing intent and vaguely releasing the massacre domain, Bodhi's eyes flashed with a hint of wariness, and he quickly changed his words. Tianyang did not attack when he heard that. However, he was extremely disgusted by Bodhi's tone, which sounded as if he was the owner of this place. You can attack the Vajra Arhat at the last moment when the top 10 are fighting for Saint Monk Shumi's item. I won't interfere then. Bodhi said coldly. Hearing this, Vajra Arhat glared at Tianyang angrily and turned to leave. However, at this moment, Tianyang smiled and slashed out with his sword. The sharp sword light tore a spatial crack in the direction the 3 of them had left. Have you forgotten that you haven't answered my question yet? Tianyang chuckled. At the same time, he glanced at the unconscious members of the Vajra temple and smiled coldly. He reached out and released a suction force, pulling one of them over. If you don't speak for 1 minute, I'll kill one of you. If you don't speak for 2 minutes, I'll kill all of you. How dare you? The Vajra Arhat roared, his eyes wide with anger. The person Tianyang was holding was the Vajra Arhat's 3rd junior brother, a peak spiritual grade great saint. He had used the infinite yang technique to sense the location of the infinite yin-yang technique and wanted to take Yun Xinyuan as his cauldron. You're still so stubborn? Fine. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled faintly and pinched the air. The Vajra Arhat's third junior brother's head exploded, and his primordial spirit was devoured by Tianyang. Only the Vajra Arhat and other Arhats had holy emperor-level restrictions. Therefore, Tianyang had easily devoured the Vajra Arhat's primordial spirit. Unfortunately, even though he knew the Vajra Arhat's third junior brother, he only had the first level of the Vajra body-tempering sacred technique in his head. He'd have to get the full version from the Vajra Arhat. You! The Vajra Arhat's eyes narrowed, and he roared. Tianyang had actually dared to kill someone from the Vajra temple right in front of him. You're still yelling? Fine. This time, Tianyang made his move. He pointed at a random person and sent a sword finger flying out. The Vajra Arhat's primordial spirit was torn apart while he was still unconscious and euthanized. The Vajra Arhat opened his mouth again, as if he wanted to say something. Bodhi threw the Vajra Arhat behind him and looked coldly at Tianyang. Since you've told me all that profound Buddhist wisdom, why are you still killing the innocent? You want information? Sure. Bodhi hurriedly added, as if he was afraid that Tianyang would kill again. Tianyang smiled when he heard this. First, what you said might be Buddhist wisdom. I can't be bothered to analyze it, but who told you that I'm going to do as I'm told if I say something that makes sense? My Tao heart isn't built on such empty and weak things. Before Bodhi could explode, Tianyang spoke again. Moreover, these people wanted to use my maidservants as cultivation vessels. How are they innocent? Bodhisattva Bodhi frowned. Who knows if you're speaking the truth or not? I don't care if you're telling the truth or not. Tell me what you know, or else. Tianyang smiled faintly. There was no way he could convince this one-track-minded Buddhist monk. He would forever live in his own world. Tianyang's IQ might not even be on the same level as the monk, not to mention that he did not have as much experience as the monk. The sky-suppressing pagoda. Before Tianyang could threaten him, Bodhi hurriedly said, It's the sky-suppressing pagoda. In the Sumeru domain, there's a legend that the ancestors of the Sumeru temple left behind a powerful sage emperor weapon. It's called the sky-suppressing pagoda. Not only are there countless treasures in the sky-suppressing pagoda, it can also temper one's primordial spirit. I'm here to inform the Vajra Arhat. I just happened to run into you. Me too. I'm just a messenger. I didn't even look at your maidservants. Blissful Pagoda raised his hands and laughed. Tianyang's expression didn't change. No wonder the Blissful Pagoda was called the most shameless Buddhist sect. Most people wouldn't be able to adapt to the situation. All right, Tianyang nodded. Bodhi heaved a sigh of relief. He woke up all the living members of the Vajra temple and called them over. Then the next time we meet, it'll be stop. Tianyang spoke again, a sinister smile on his lips. Bodhi's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad feeling about this. What else do you want? Tianyang walked up behind Bodhi and kicked Vajra Arhat. Of course. Chapter 1389. Lead the way, Tianyang said indifferently. Hearing this, Bodhisattva Bodhi was instantly stunned. In the next moment, his face flushed red with rage. You gone too far. It was one thing to almost kill the Vajra Arhat and two disciples of the Vajra temple. But in the end, when they were about to enter the sky-suppressing tower, Tianyang still wanted them to lead the way. Die! Bodhi attacked in a fit of rage. However, Tianyang remained calm. He grabbed Bodhi's hand with his left hand. What? Are you trying to brush off the dust again? Tianyang said with a smile. Hearing this, the Buddhist power that Bodhi Bodhisattva had just gathered dissipated instantly, as if it had been struck by lightning. Instantly, a trace of confusion appeared in his eyes. However, he regained his resolve in the next moment. My Taoist heart is indestructible. Don't even think about interfering. Bodhisattva Bodhi said angrily. Hearing this, Tianyang shrugged non-committally, the corners of his mouth turning up in an imperceptible arc. Tianyang wasn't so free as to force Bodhi to let him lead the way. With the power of his primordial spirit, Tianyang would know about the tower if it appeared. However, Tianyang's words had been deeply ingrained in Bodhi's Taoist heart. As long as Tianyang provoked him a few more times, this interference might even turn into an inner demon. Refining one's saintly path to origin was extremely dangerous. Therefore, once an inner demon formed, it was very likely that it would suddenly disturb one's state of mind during the condensation of one's origin and step into the supreme saint stage. Although Tianyang didn't have any deep grudges with Bodhi, the dragon demons and the Bodhi sect had a deep grudge against each other. Tianyang wouldn't hurt Bodhi sect at all. However, from the looks of it, Bodhisattva's Tao heart was rather resolute. Tianyang's words were at most a provocation, but they didn't reach the level of a heart demon. However, Bodhisattva Bodhi also used his movement technique to quickly head toward the sky suppression tower. He did not dare to say a word. He was afraid that Tianyang would provoke him a few more times. Perhaps Bodhi would have a mental breakdown and become a demon in his heart. For someone like Tianyang, who believed in himself and was free and unfettered, inner demons were almost impossible to exist in his heart. Of course, this kind of Tao heart needed to be tempered countless times. Otherwise, if it couldn't be firm, it would be a hindrance to one's cultivation. After Tianyang's death, his Tao heart had been honed to perfection. Therefore, as long as Tianyang could solve the problem of his naturally terminated meridians, his cultivation would advance by leaps and bounds. Bodhisattva was very fast. Even Ling Yuan, with her 9 nether saint body, and Yun Xin Yuan, with her Xuanyin body and evading shadow, could not catch up to him. However, Tianyang could catch up. The 6th transformation of the heavens, expanse, 9 transformations, was much faster than Bodhisattva. Therefore, Bodhisattva, who wanted to shake Tianyang off, was very frustrated. If not for the fact that he couldn't beat Tianyang, Tianyang might take the opportunity to kill Tianyang. He would have killed Tianyang long ago. This is it. A few minutes later, they stopped at the largest peak of Mount Meru in a radius of 10,000 miles. There were a total of 49 Mount Meru in a radius of 10,000 miles. Mount Meru happened to be in the center of this area. It was also the largest mountain. It seemed very prominent. However, it was impossible for ordinary people to have a primordial spirit sensing range of 10,000 miles. Even if they did, they could only cover a small area. It was almost impossible to find such a mountain in the complicated terrain of the 108,000 Mount Meru. Therefore, other than the 3 major Buddhist sects, there were only Tianyang and his group at the peak of Mount Meru. There was also the coarse monk who had jumped out to be the mediator after Tianyang fought with the Vajraarhood outside. There's someone else? Bodhisattva was shocked when he saw the coarse monk. The secret of the sky suppression tower was only known to the 3 major Buddhist sects and their branches. Bodhisattva had never seen the coarse monk before. His aura was completely different from the 3 major Buddhist sects. Where did this guy come from? Tianyang glanced at the coarse monk, then walked to the side and waited quietly. Although the coarse monk was a little crazy, Tianyang did not want to provoke him. His mysterious aura seemed to be even stronger than Bodhisattva's. On the other hand, the coarse monk did not seem to be afraid of Bodhisattva at all. Instead, he chuckled and greeted Bodhisattva's group. Soon, Bodhisattva muttered to himself. Then, in the next second, thousands of Buddhist powers gathered. Mount Meru instantly began to tremble violently. The body of the mountain began to crack. Only the place where everyone was standing did not change at all. And within the mountain, a gigantic tower suddenly appeared. The pagoda had a total of 7 floors. It was simple in appearance, and the top of the octagonal pagoda exuded a mysterious aura. Although he had not entered, Tianyang could feel the pressure on his primordial spirit. Seems like it's a decent place to cultivate one's primordial spirit. Tianyang had no interest in the treasures of the Buddhist sections. However, the Sky Suppression Tower's promotion of primordial spirit cultivation was what Tianyang valued. At that moment, a group of cultivators flew up from Bodhisattva's group. It was the same for the Joyous Sky, the 3 major Buddhist sects, and some of their branches. Just in front of him, there were close to 100 great sages. Close to 1/8 of the great sages of Mount Meru domain were here. However, Tianyong also noticed that there seemed to be a special barrier around Mount Meru. It isolated the commotion caused by the Sky Suppression Tower's appearance. In other words, even if the Sky Suppression Tower appeared, Tianyong's primordial spirit might not be able to sense it. It seems that letting this group of people lead the way was a stroke of luck. Tianyong smiled faintly. At this time, a group of people had already rushed into the Sky Suppression Tower. Tianyong led Ling Yuhan and Yun Xinyuan in. Yuhan, although your cultivation is not bad, the power of your primordial spirit has not caught up. You're only a half-sage now. The Sky Suppression Tower is an opportunity. You have absorbed so much power of will, and all the impurities in your primordial spirit have been purified. Cultivating your primordial spirit in the Sky Suppression Tower will definitely improve rapidly, Tianyong said. Ling Yuhan nodded and began to cultivate. After that, Tianyong sized up the first level of the Sky Suppression Tower. The primordial spirit pressure on the first level was not great. It was about the same level as the primordial spirit power of a peak half-sage or a beginner mid-sage. Tianyong could walk freely in it. Tianyong was not in a hurry to go to the second level. Instead, he went to the center of the first level. There was a huge stone tablet that was 5 feet tall and 3 feet wide. However, there were no words. Chapter 1390. Wordless empty tablet. Tianyong was taken aback. Why would there be an empty tablet in the center of the first floor? Tianyong casually walked around the wordless empty stele, but he still couldn't find any clues. Even when he injected his true yuan into it, he couldn't find anything out of the ordinary. It was as if it was just a wordless empty tablet. As expected, those who don't understand the mysteries of the Sky Suppressing Tower will look for the wordless empty tablet as soon as they enter. Little did they know that the wordless empty stele was merely a test for those who entered the heaven-suppressing pagoda from the Sumeru Temple. The Sky Suppressing Tower is used to train one's primordial spirit. Tianyong didn't train his primordial spirit and went to look for treasures instead. Naturally, he won't be able to climb the path of martial arts. The Vajra Arhut sneered when he saw Tianyong looking at the wordless empty tablet. He couldn't beat Tianyong in a fight anyway. Now that he could have some fun with his mouth, he naturally didn't hold back. Tianyong completely ignored the Vajra Arhut's bullshit and continued to look at the wordless empty tablet. He injected his true yuan, but there was no reaction. He also injected his primordial spirit, but there was no reaction at all. He punched it, but other than a little pain from the recoil, there was nothing. His primordial spirit didn't sense anything special either. It was as if it was just an ordinary white square stone. Yuhan, Yin Xinyuan, if you want to strengthen your primordial spirit, don't worry about me. Tianyong's primordial spirit had reached the level of a great sage. Even some spirit and earth great sages couldn't reach this level. In Tianyong's impression, only the half-holy Emperor Patriarch Xianyuan and the true Holy Emperor, the Dragon Emperor, had reached this level and surpassed it. Therefore, Tianyong wasn't in a hurry to cultivate his primordial spirit. The Sky Suppressing Tower might be very useful, but it was still a little lacking if it wanted Tianyong to reach the great sage primordial spirit that only half-holy emperors and above could reach. Tianyong continued to observe. When did this guy get here? At this moment, Tianyong was stunned. He looked at the coarse monk who seemed to have appeared out of thin air and was sitting cross-legged on the side of the wordless empty tablet. It seemed like he was cultivating. His primordial spirit's senses were constantly enveloping a radius of 5,000 kilometers. As for Tianyong, he had reached a terrifying realm where he could detect even the slightest movement of the grass in the wind. Even so, Tianyong did not notice when the coarse clothed monk appeared. Could it be that the effect of cultivating beside the wordless empty tablet is better? Tianyong frowned and activated the divine desolate heaven spirit art. Unfortunately, it was the same as usual. In fact, due to the pressure from the Yuan spirit, his cultivation speed was even slower than usual. Forget it. It might just be a rock. Wait, Tianyang had used all the methods he could think of, but there was still no reaction from the wordless, empty tablet. Just as he was about to leave, Tianyang seemed to have thought of something, and his face suddenly changed. That's right. In the next moment, within Tianyang's dantian, the chaos origin began to operate. A trace of chaos qi flowed to Tianyang's finger. Then Tianyang pointed out with his finger. All things originated from chaos, and all worlds returned to chaos. Chaos was the origin of the origin, the great Tao of the great Tao. The origin of all arts was chaos. If there was really something strange about the wordless, empty tablet, even if the original method to open it failed, the chaos origin would definitely be able to open it easily. Just as expected, it was different from the primordial spirit and primordial spirit power that disappeared like a clay ox entering the sea. This time, when the chaos chi entered the wordless empty tablet, there was no change. Streams of powerful spatial energy followed the chaos chi released by Tianyang and surged into Tianyang's soul sea. In an instant, Tianyang's primordial spirit seemed to have entered a strange space. Or rather, a world. This is Tianyang's primordial spirit seemed to have been split into two. One remained in his original body, while the other appeared in this strange world. At this moment, Tianyang's expression suddenly changed. In the distance, it was the coarse-clothed monk who had suddenly appeared beside the wordless, empty tablet. He sat down cross-legged and seemed to be cultivating. I didn't expect you to be able to enter the wordless, empty tablet. The coarse-clothed monk seemed to have noticed Tianyang's presence. He turned around and smiled at Tianyang. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression froze. He had used the chaos chi to forcefully open the door. It was like a universal key. However, it was impossible for everyone to comprehend the chaos origin. In Tianyang's impression, the chaos origin had never appeared in the Shintian Great Cosmos before. In that case, it was obvious how the coarse-clothed monk had entered. Interesting. Tianyang narrowed his eyes slightly. At this moment, the coarse-clothed monk smiled. It seems that benefactor Tianyang doesn't know where this place is. The Sumeru Temple not only has the Sumeru Domain, but also the 9 sky suppression towers. In the great calamity that destroyed the Sumeru Temple, 8 of the sky suppression towers were taken out of the Sumeru Domain as war weapons to fight against foreign enemies. Since then, their whereabouts have been unknown. The last one gathers all the treasures left behind by the Sumeru Temple before it was destroyed. Buddhist scriptures, cultivation methods, martial techniques, sariras, Buddhist statues, and even the power left behind by the true Buddha are all here. The coarse-clothed monk smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. This sky suppression tower was actually a treasure trove? Although I don't know how benefactor Tianyang entered the real treasure trove of the sky suppression tower. Since you're here, you have the right to take one of the treasures. Please. The coarse-clothed monk smiled. Then, he turned around and stepped into a pavilion. Tianyang looked around and saw countless similar pavilions lined up not far away. Tianyang could even see treasures at the level of half-saint emperor artifacts. There's something here. Tianyang chuckled. Buddhist scriptures, martial techniques, sariras, Buddhist statues, and even the power of the true Buddha? Unfortunately, although the Sumeru Temple was powerful, it was impossible for them to have the body-tempering sacred techniques of the Diamond Temple. The other treasures were not too important to Tianyang. So, it's better to choose one that suits me better. Tianyang smiled. The coarse-clothed monk came out of a pavilion empty-handed and looked at Tianyang. He seemed to be curious why Tianyang had not moved yet. At this moment, Tianyang stretched out his right hand and tore open the space. A deep spatial crack was directly torn open. Then, his right hand was forcefully inserted into the space. For example, the structure of this world. Chapter 1391. Sumeru in a mustard seed technique. Tianyang smiled. In the next moment, he took out a ball of light from the space. Although he had only entered as a primordial spirit, he could still see the uniqueness of the wordless spatial tablet with the power of his sage state primordial spirit. The uniqueness lay in the fact that This was not a space like the Vientiane sky ruins. It was a world with complete laws. Because it was only the size of a few dozen pavilions and the space in the middle, there were no 108,000 Sumeru mountains here. The Sumeru in a mustard seed technique could be easily used. A mustard seed was an extremely small object. Sumeru was the world here. The world of the Sky's Suppression Pagoda's treasure vault was supported by the wordless spatial tablet outside. The treasures here might be precious, but the most precious thing was the foundation of the Sumeru temple. Even after its destruction, it did not spread the Sumeru in a mustard seed technique. What? The coarse-clothed monk was shocked when he saw this. He had thought that Tianyang had entered through some unknown means and would leave after taking the treasures. He did not expect Tianyang to know about the mystery of the wordless spatial tablet. He had even taken out the Sumeru in a mustard seed technique that was hidden in the deepest part of the wordless spatial tablet. Benefactor Tianyang, although I may not be able to defeat you, I still hope that you can give me some face. The coarse-clothed monk could no longer maintain his composure. His expression turned serious as waves of terrifying Buddhist energy bloomed around him. Half-step to heavenly grade. Half-step to heavenly grade, stronger than Bodhisattva. He was only a step away from heavenly grade. I don't know you. Why should I give you face? Tianyang smiled and kept the ball of light in his body. If he was not mistaken, this coarse-clothed monk was the successor of the destroyed Sumeru temple. Although Tianyang did not know why the successor of the Sumeru temple did not rebuild the sect, he could not be bothered to find out. The most powerful sacred technique of the Sumeru temple was the Sumeru in a mustard seed technique. If Tianyang wanted to take it away, the coarse-cloth monk, as the successor of Sumeru temple, naturally couldn't just watch as Tianyang took it away. If that's the case, I'm sorry to offend you, benefactor. Instantly, the coarse-clothed monk moved. In the beginning, before the Sumeru realm opened, Tianyang had only fought with the Vajra Arhut. That was when he learned of Tianyang's power. Although he was stronger than the Vajra Arhut, he was only a peak Earth rank Great Saint. He was only a little bit away from the Heaven grade. In an instant, the terrifying Buddhist power condensed into a giant golden fist and charged towards Tianyang. Both of them had condensed the power of their origin souls here, so the battle here was even more dangerous than the battle outside. The slightest bit of carelessness could result in the destruction of one's primordial spirit. Even if only a part of it was destroyed, it would still be a huge blow to the main body. His primordial spirit is close to the peak of the saint stage. Sensing the powerful primordial spirit power on the golden fist, Tianyang was surprised. The primordial spirit power of some great saints was only at the beginner level of the saint stage. The Thunder Great Saints of the Xianyuan family, Bloodslayer Great Saint, and Bloodsoul Great Saint were only at the peak of the beginner level of the saint stage. After all, if one's primordial spirit hadn't reached the saint stage, the primordial spirit didn't need to be focused on cultivation. Just the power of the primordial spirit was enough. The Crimson Dragon Saint's primordial spirit was only at the intermediate level of the saint stage. Xianyuan Kongming was also at the intermediate level of the saint stage, similar to the Crimson Dragon Saint. In this way, it was rare for a peak Earth rank saint stage cultivator to reach the advanced level of the saint stage. However, the coarse cloth monk was half a step away from the heaven rank. His primordial spirit was close to the level of a great saint stage cultivator. Although I'll be injured, I've already done my best to control my strength. The coarse cloth monk put his palms together and said solemnly, "But I'm sorry, my Sumeru temple's sacred technique cannot fall into the hands of others. There's no need for that." Tianyang smiled faintly as he looked at the giant fist that was inches away from him. A terrifying Yuan spirit power that was as vast as the sea erupted behind him. In just an instant, the giant golden fist was torn into pieces. Even a beginner-level saint stage cultivator could easily crush 10 primordial spirits that were close to the level of a great saint stage cultivator. If it was a physical battle, Tianyang would have some trouble. But if it was a primordial spirit clash? Sorry. Seconds passed. Boom. Tianyang's primordial spirit power instantly condensed into a long sword and shot towards the coarse cloth monk. The coarse cloth monk's pupils contracted as he looked at Tianyang in disbelief. What did he see? A cultivator whose primordial spirit cultivation was only at the level of a great saint stage cultivator. The primordial spirit power was actually also a great saint stage cultivator. 3 elemental saints. The coarse cloth monk reacted instantly and roared. His primordial spirit power erupted and condensed into a giant shield. The giant shield blocked the flying sword, but it was still easily destroyed by Tianyang's primordial spirit sword. The coarse cloth monk's expression changed drastically as he dodged the sword. However, Tianyang snapped his fingers. Primordial spirit secret technique, divine piercing blade. A rain of blades gathered behind Tianyang. At the same time, the heavenly sword appeared in Tianyang's hand. A peak saint grade martial soul was equivalent to a great sage weapon. The coarse cloth monk was in complete despair when he saw this. The opponent that he thought he could easily deal with turned out to be a primordial beast. Not to mention that Tianyang still had the heavenly sword. Even a rain of blades was not something that the coarse cloth monk, who was only an advanced saint, could block. It seems like the Shumi's sacred technique is fated to be with you. The coarse cloth monk sighed and raised his hands in surrender. In the face of absolute power, resistance was futile. If I can defeat you, then it's fate. If I can't defeat you, then it's fate. Tianyang looked playfully at the coarse cloth monk and smiled. The coarse cloth monk smiled bitterly. Probably. However, the coarse cloth monk's expression suddenly became serious. I hope that you, Tianyang, will not easily spread the sacred technique of the Shumi Temple. Otherwise, the 892nd successor of the Shumi Temple, Yongqing, will not let you off, the coarse cloth monk said firmly. Hearing this, Tianyang narrowed his eyes. Your words give me the urge to kill you right now. However, this is the territory of the Shumi Temple after all. I'll let you off this time. Tianyang smiled and left the wordless steel in a flash. The Shumi's sacred technique in mustard seed formed a scroll in Tianyang's Sea of Soul. It was the foundation of the Shumi Temple, the treasure of the Shumi Temple, the most powerful Buddhist technique in the world. Got it. Although I don't know what the Shumi Temple is, I'll give you a reminder. If you can comprehend it, your space Tao will be able to condense the origin. The vast expanse, Saint Spirit's voice sounded. Tianyang smiled. Of course. Then, Tianyang left the wordless steel in a flash. Chapter 1392. The primordial spirit pressure on the first floor of the sky-suppressing tower was only average. It did not have much effect on Tianyang's primordial spirit cultivation. Then, Tianyang went to the second floor. As for the ordinary disciples of the blissful sect, Bodhi sect, and Vajra temple, they usually cultivated here. Seeing Tianyang come up, their faces were full of sarcasm. Eldest senior brother was right. This guy has been studying the wordless empty steel on the first floor for a long time. He only realized how stupid his behavior was after studying it for a long time. The sky-suppressing tower is open for 7 days at most. Now, he has wasted almost a day. In the final battle for the power of will, eldest senior brother will be the strongest. The group of disciples of the Titanium Temple sneered. Hearing this, Tianyang shrugged and patted. The few disciples of the Titanium Temple who had bad mouths were sent flying by Tianyang. Is there something wrong with their heads? Tianyang curled his lips. These people were really stupid. They knew that he had a deep grudge with the Titanium Temple, but they still mocked him here. Did they really think that he was afraid of the Titanium Temple? Blood spurted out and dyed the ground red. The few disciples of the Titanium Temple who were sent flying got up with difficulty and were about to speak. They saw the primordial spirit power around Tianyang. Instantly, they were stunned, even though blood kept flowing out of the corners of their mouths. Then, Tianyang's figure disappeared from the third floor. The third floor was where Ling Yuhan and Yun Xinyuan cultivated. At the same time, it was also where the third junior brother of the Titanium Temple, who was killed by Tianyang, cultivated. The primordial spirit pressure on the third floor is comparable to that of the coarse-clothed monk from the Sumeru temple. What's his name again? Tianyang sensed that the primordial spirit power of the peak of the advanced saint realm was enough to make some people unable to withstand it. However, there were also some people in this environment. They could still cause trouble for others. Tianyang is not here, and you still dare to come up here and cultivate with us in the sky-suppressing tower? The second disciple of the Vajra temple sneered. He looked at Ling Yuhan and Yun Xinyuan, who were struggling to resist the pressure of their souls. The heaven-suppressing pagoda had always been the private property of the three great Buddhist sections. Now, there was actually an outsider who was forcing them to give up a portion of the heaven-suppressing pagoda. If Tianyang was here and they couldn't beat Tianyang, that would be fine. But now, Tianyang wasn't here. Two girls who weren't even great sages wanted to get a share of the loot? Blissful sect, aren't you tempted by these two beauties? The second disciple of the Vajra temple sneered as he looked at the second disciple of the blissful sect, who was cultivating beside him. Upon hearing this, the second disciple from the blissful sect shook his head and said, "I'm sorry. Eldest senior brother has instructed us not to provoke Tianyang if possible. The blissful sect and Tianyang don't have any grudges. TSK, Tianyang is probably still messing around with the empty, wordless, empty tablet. Are you still afraid of him?" The second disciple of the Vajra temple sneered disdainfully. Then he looked at Ling Yuhan and Yun Xinyuan, who both had ugly expressions on their faces, and sneered. "Then these two beauties will be mine to enjoy. Vajra body refining, saint technique, second level." The Buddhist energy of an earthly great sage erupted. Thunderbolts burst out and turned into countless lightning dragons that charged toward Ling Yuhan and Yun Xinyuan. Damn it! Yun Xuanyuan's expression was extremely ugly. In an instant, her mystical Yin energy erupted and blasted toward the lightning dragons. The terrifying sword Qi collided with the lightning dragons. However, contrary to Yun Xuanyuan's expectations, the sword formed by her mystical Yin energy should have been able to block the lightning dragons. However, for some reason, balls of blazing flames were burning on the lightning dragon. He directly burned his own mysterious Yin energy into ashes. There's something I forgot to mention. The second disciple of the Vajra temple smiled maliciously. "I can't cultivate eldest senior brother's Vajra demon subduing art. So, I'm cultivating the boundless yang technique." The boundless yang technique specialized in countering Yin true origin. Although Yun Xuanyuan's mystical Yin body's mystical Yin energy could not be destroyed by ordinary yang techniques, the difference in strength between them was too great. However, the difference in cultivation between Xinyuan Yun and the second disciple of the Vajra temple was simply too great. Therefore, even the mystical Yin energy was easily destroyed by the boundless yang art. 9 Nether Frost Technique. At this moment, Ling Yuhan's expression changed slightly. She released her 9-tailed moon fox martial soul. 9 snow-white fox tails suddenly appeared behind her. At the same time, her 9 Nether Saint body erupted. The 9 Nether Force turned into ice and attacked the second disciple of the Vajra temple. "She's from the demon clan?" Seeing this, the second disciple of the Vajra temple sneered. "That Tianyang is really lucky. Now just stand there obediently." The second disciple of the Vajra temple burned with a terrifying flame in his hand and broke through Ling Yuhan's attack. Just like Yun Xinyuan, he crushed his opponent in terms of quality. But in terms of quantity, he was crushed by his opponent. Relying on the difference in cultivation, the second disciple of the Vajra temple defeated Yun Xinyuan and Ling Yuhan. After all, other than the boundless yang technique, I also have the spiritual fire. The second disciple of the Vajra temple laughed wildly. His cultivation was at the level of an earthly great saint, the boundless yang technique, and the spiritual fire. These three things added together were enough to completely restrain them. Damn it! Ling Yuhan's expression changed slightly. Just as she was about to activate the 9 Nether Frost technique for the final attack, a familiar aura exploded. Oh no! The second disciple of the Vajra temple also sensed the terrifying aura coming from behind. Just as he was about to turn and run, an extremely sharp sword light suddenly came at him. It cleanly pierced through the head of the second disciple of the Vajra temple. Then, the flames of the demonic tribe began to burn. Tianyang's expression was cold. As he walked forward, he crushed the body of the second disciple of the Vajra temple. Tianyang, how dare you kill me? The second disciple of the Vajra temple, who was being burned by the demonic fire, looked at Tianyang, who was stepping on his body, and instantly let out a shrill scream. Lord Buddha of the Vajra temple will not let you go. Noisy. Tianyang looked at him coldly. Above the demonic fire, the true flames of destruction burned. In an instant, the primordial spirit of the second disciple of the Vajra temple was burned to ashes. I'm sorry. I didn't think it through. Tianyang came to Ling Yuhan. His expression softened as he reached out to touch Ling Yuhan's head. Then, he turned around and looked at the disciples of the three Buddhist sections. Blissful sect and Bodhi sect get lost. Chapter 1393. Diamond Temple. You're courting death. Tianyang said coldly as he looked at the dozen people in front of him. If he had been delayed in the wordless, empty steel, or if the monk from Sumeru Temple had been stronger, he would have been too late. If that had happened, Ling Yuhan would have made her final move. Underworld sealing the 9 heavens. This was the ultimate move of a 9 Shades frost incantation. With Ling Yuhan's current progress, it would be a little difficult to use Underworld sealing the 9 heavens, but it would not kill her like the last time. However, Tianyang would not have allowed Ling Yuhan to use this move unless it was the last moment. The second disciple from Diamond Temple had almost allowed Ling Yuhan to use this move again. In that case, don't blame Tianyang. He was merciless. How dare you speak to the people of Diamond Temple like that after killing second senior brother and third senior brother? At this moment, a Diamond Temple disciple heard this and was instantly enraged. He roared and charged at Tianyang. Tianyang's expression was cold as he pointed his sword finger at the disciple. Telepathic sword finger. An ordinary sword finger flew out and pierced through the forehead of the Diamond Temple disciple with incomparably sharp sword light. Then, the demonic flame burned the disciple to ashes. A spiritual grade great saint was not much stronger than an ant in front of Tianyang. Demon, that's the demonic flame. One of the disciples from Diamond Temple recognized the demonic flame in Tianyang's hand and shouted, Tianyang is a traitor of the demon race. The dragon demons are also puppets of the demon race. Everyone, hurry up and get rid of this demon for the mysterious sky great world. Second senior brother, third senior brother, and fourth senior brother have all died at the hands of this demon. The fifth disciple from Diamond Temple shouted. Now, only he and the sixth disciple from Diamond Temple were left on the third level. They were no match for Tianyang. Only by asking the Blissful Sect and the Bodhi Sect for help would they have a chance to survive. Settle the grudges of the Vajra Temple yourself. Upon hearing that, the members of the Blissful Sect retreated as far as they could, as though they were trying to avoid a calamity. As for the members of the Bodhi Sect, they didn't have the slightest intention of attacking. At this moment, Tianyang's expression was cold as he directly attacked. In an instant, 2 rays of light shot out. The remaining 2 disciples of the Vajra Temple were also pierced through between their eyebrows, their souls extinguished. It's a pity that I didn't kill the people of the Diamond Temple when I passed by the second level. Tianyang sighed, turned around, and walked towards the 4th floor. The remaining 2 from the Buddhist sects had best stay within the boundary obediently. Otherwise, after I deal with the people above, I'll kill you first. Tianyang pointed his finger with his back facing the crowd. Like a wall of flames, the true flames of destruction instantly formed a boundary. It even contained a trace of primal chaos chi. Even an earthly great sage would not be able to pass through easily. However, this boundary divided the entire 3rd floor of the sky, suppressing pagoda, into 2. Half of the floor was occupied by the 2 Buddhist sects, while the other half was occupied by Ling Yuhan and Yun Xinyuan. This, the second disciple of the Blissful Sect frowned, But when he looked at the ashes of the disciples of the Diamond Temple on the ground, he could only sigh. The Diamond Temple was retarded. Why did they provoke Tianyang? Now, they were implicated as well. After that, Tianyang went to the fourth floor. The three bodhisattvas of the blissful sect, Bodhi Bodhisattva and Diamond Bodhisattva, were cultivating on the fourth floor. The pressure of the primordial spirit here had already reached the level of a great sage. Tianyang's primordial spirit also felt uncomfortable, but it was still much better than the others. The space on the fourth floor was much smaller than the third floor. Tianyang easily saw the three bodhisattvas. Tianyang, Bodhi Bodhisattva, was stunned when he saw Tianyang. Had Tianyang realized that there was nothing on the wordless spatial tablet so quickly and made the wise decision to come up here? On the other hand, the blissful sect was extremely wary of Tianyang and took a few steps back. He always had a feeling that Tianyang was not someone to be trifled with. The blissful sect's secret technique, the mortal eye, allowed the blissful sect to see Tianyang's terrifying aura. Although it was not obvious, it was enough for the blissful sect to sense Tianyang's strength. The Diamond Bodhisattva's face instantly darkened. I didn't expect that a conceited guy who thinks there's something on the wordless spatial tablet would be able to come up here so quickly. However, a day has already passed. You've lost a day to cultivate. I think your cultivation results will be far inferior to ours. The Diamond Bodhisattva said coldly and touched his neck as he spoke. In his eyes, there was an extremely cold, killing intent. That sword strike was the greatest humiliation of his life. If it weren't for the fact that we can't fight in the Sky Suppression Tower, I would have, the Diamond Bodhisattva sneered. At that moment, Tianyang's figure flashed and his leg flew over. The Diamond Bodhisattva's head was forcefully knocked askew. Blood spewed out of his mouth as his head carried his body and he was sent flying. In fact, there were even a few broken teeth in the blood he spat out. What? The blissful sect and Bodhi Bodhisattva were stunned. None of them expected Tianyang to attack as soon as he arrived and send the Diamond Bodhisattva flying with a kick. Although that kick didn't contain much true origin, that terrifying physical strength, it was enough to injure them directly in the fourth level of the Sky Suppression Tower, where the primordial spirit pressure was incomparably terrifying. The Diamond Bodhisattva was caught off guard and was instantly severely injured. Tianyang, the Diamond Bodhisattva, was sent flying several hundred meters before he landed. His eyes were bloodshot as he charged at Tianyang. Die! The Diamond Bodhisattva roared, and the third level of the Diamond Body Tempering Saint Technique was activated. Along with the terrifying Buddhist energy of the Diamond Temple's strongest technique, the Diamond Demon Suppression Art, he charged at Tianyang. Great Tao, obliterating seal. The Diamond Bodhisattva roared and released his Buddhist energy. His hands formed a series of complicated and mysterious seals, and he threw them out. The power seemed to be enough to shake the heavens and earth. Seeing that, Tianyang's expression was cold. He released the 9-tempered dragon body, and the second level of the Diamond Body Tempering Saint Technique was activated. His physical strength was completely released. One punch, unparalleled dragon might. The gigantic seal that seemed like it could shatter the heavens and earth was forcefully shattered by Tianyang's punch. The seal shattered into pieces and turned into specks of light that scattered. At that moment, Tianyang used the 6th transformation of the vast expanse 9 transformations. He did not give anyone time to react and punched the Diamond Bodhisattva's face. With that punch, the Diamond Bodhisattva spat out another mouthful of blood and all his teeth were shattered. However, Tianyang's expression was the same as before. He grabbed the Diamond Bodhisattva's head and slammed it on the ground. Instantly, the Diamond Bodhisattva's face was covered in blood. His golden red kasaya was also torn by Tianyang's terrifying strength. Chapter 1394. Streams of blood flowed freely. Bodhi Bodhisattva and Joyous Sky were in complete shock the moment Sky Sun made his move. It wasn't until Sky Sun unleashed a series of attacks on Bodhi Bodhisattva that they snapped out of it. Tianyang, what are you doing? Bodhi Bodhisattva roared in anger. He channeled his Buddhist energy and charged at Tianyang. However, Tianyang merely turned his head. His murderous gaze stopped Bodhi in his tracks. He was dead. He was going to be killed. Damn. The Vajra Arhat, who had been severely injured by Tianyang, was sprawled on the ground, bleeding all over. His eyes were burning with hatred. However, Tianyang's eyes narrowed when he heard those words. He grabbed the Vajra Arhat and slammed him against the wall of Sky Suppression Tower. Boom! The Vajra Arhat could have been embedded into the wall if not for the tower's strong material. However, the wall's recoil injured the Vajra Arhat's organs. It was as if his organs had been turned into mush. The Vajra Arhat was in so much pain that he wanted to die. He fell from the wall and knelt on the ground, coughing up more blood. What did the Vajra Arhat do? Why are you doing this to him? Bodhisattva Bodhi roared as he glared at Heavenly Sunday. I suggest you shut up. Tianyang glared coldly at Bodhi. Why should I, Tianyang, explain my actions to you? Tianyang walked toward the Vajra Arhat with a cold expression. You? Did second junior brother say, oh, so you knew. The Vajra Arhat had just opened his mouth when he sensed that something was wrong. He shut his mouth in time, but Tianyang still heard him clearly. Tianyang's lips curled into a sinister smile. A black light flashed in his hand. Great Void Sword Embryo out. I thought you'd know better than to provoke me, since you can't beat me. It seems that I have overestimated the intelligence of the Titanium Temple. Tianyang smiled faintly. His slaughter domain automatically expanded. The terrifying killing intent seemed to want to turn the fourth floor of the heaven-suppressing pagoda into a hell of death. Everywhere was blood and fire. Everywhere was a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. The heavenly sun annihilating the blood sea had killed countless demons. The lives of these three Arhats added together might not even be a fraction of Tianyang's. In the face of Tianyang's terrifying slaughter territory, Bodhi's face turned pale. At this moment, Tianyang frowned and the great void sword embryo in his hand stopped falling. It's all right to have a sacred emperor's protection. However, since it's already been activated, let's see if your sacred emperor's protection can last until the end. Tianyang snorted and kicked the Vajra Arhat away. Then, he turned and left. The second he spoke to Bodhi, the Vajra Arhat activated the other power that the sacred emperor of the Titanium Temple had left in his body. It was different from the sacred emperor's power from before. The previous one was for offense, but this one was for defense. As expected of the Vajra Arhat, with the power of two sacred emperors, an ordinary faction or even a few factions combined wouldn't be able to withstand a single sacred emperor's power. At this moment, Tianyang didn't have much of a way to deal with a sacred emperor's defense. Therefore, he let the Vajra Arhat live for now. In the end, when the top 10 with the most powerful fought in the central 10 Summer Mountains, that would be the day the Vajra Arhat died. Of course, Tianyang didn't forget to take the power of will from the Vajra Arhat. Although the power of his primordial spirit was mostly purified, the power of will could still be used. Tianyang glanced at Bodhisattva Bodhi and Joyous Sky before leaving the fourth level in a flash. The fourth floor was only at the same level as him. Although it had some effect, it wasn't everything. The fifth floor was the best place for him to cultivate. The Vajra Arhat gritted his teeth as he watched Tianyang disappear. His power of will had been taken away. His Buddhist power had been shattered, and his body had been severely injured by Tianyang's violent beating. He didn't even have the strength to stand up, let alone cultivate with the primordial spirit pressure of the sky-suppressing tower. Under normal circumstances, the sky-suppressing tower's primordial spirit pressure was so strong that many people who wanted to fight would be exhausted in the middle of the battle. That was why Bodhi had allowed Tianyang to enter the sky-suppressing tower without worry. He hadn't expected Tianyang to be so savage. Even on the fourth floor, where the primordial spirit pressure was at the level of the sacred emperor, he could still force the Vajra Arhat out of the sacred emperor's protection. This guy can't be. Bodhi muttered to himself with a grave expression. Joyous Sky looked around and saw that no one was paying attention to her. She slipped to the furthest corner from the entrance to the fifth floor. The mustard seed sumaru technique is indeed profound. On the fifth floor, Tianyang resisted the primordial spirit pressure of a human great supreme saint while comprehending the mustard seed sumeru technique he'd obtained from the wordless spatial steel. The mustard seed sumeru technique was actually a space saint technique. Moreover, it was a powerful saint technique that pointed directly to the origin. The mustard seed sumeru technique is a Buddhist technique to construct space. That's why it's not very suitable for me. However, when it comes to space, even the sacred emperor weapon in the wordless spatial steel can't compare to it. Tianyang said excitedly. He'd already reached a bottleneck in his cultivation of space. Now that the mustard seed sumeru technique had appeared, it was like bringing a bucket of water from the desert. Tianyang had only studied it for a short while, but he could already feel that his space Tao had shown signs of advancing by leaps and bounds. With the chaos origin, he had even gained a considerable understanding of the space origin. If the space Tao is strong, the space-time blink will become stronger and stronger. If I can cultivate the space-time blink to the highest level, then even the old dog of the Xinyuan family won't be able to block my sword. Tianyang smiled faintly and focused on his cultivation. Under the strong pressure of the primordial spirit, one could either not cultivate at all, and even one's thinking would be affected, or one could resist the pressure and cultivate by force. Whether it was the cultivation of the primordial spirit or the cultivation of cultivation methods and martial techniques, it would be twice the result with half the effort. Tianyang unknowingly entered this state. Once he entered, he'd been in this state for 5 days. 5 days later, Tianyang slowly woke up. Around him, streaks of silver-white auras circled. With a thought, the great void sword embryo appeared. Thanks to the chaos origin. Otherwise, this sword wouldn't have been so easy to create. The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up. The power of the space origin lingered around him. In the next moment, he slashed out with his sword. It was beyond the definition of fast. It was impossible to see Tianyang's sword. But the fifth floor of the Sky Suppression Pagoda was a space with a radius of 500 feet and a height of 300 feet. Every inch of it tore open an eye of space. This sword shall be called Void Destruction. Tianyang smiled slightly and withdrew his sword. Countless eyes of space erupted at this moment.